Welcome back to Second and Short. It is March 24th, 2023, and NFL free agency has slowed down a bit. So now we just kind of wait for the draft in the NFL at least. But in the meantime, we've got MLB opening day just 6 days away. The Premier League is, reaching a very exciting end, honestly. And then got some international matches this weekend on the break. Champions League quarterfinals coming up in a couple weeks. There is plenty of things for us to keep everybody entertained. Luke, are you excited for today?
I'm very excited for today. How about you?
I am, because we've got some great stuff in store. So, obviously, we're going to go over some NFL news as we do every week because it's just a reality TV show playing in front of our eyes. But we're also going to give you our top 10 edge rushers from this season to continue this series that we've now been doing for 5 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, quarterback, running back, wide. Yeah, around 5 weeks.
Yeah, and then we're going to give you some in-depth analysis on our MLB awards predictions. So that's going to be MVPs, Cy Youngs, Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year, Relievers of the Year, Hank Aaron Award, all that stuff. Both leagues giving it all to you. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the international matchups from this weekend in this international break for all of European soccer. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Premier League. Antonio Conte had some interesting stuff to say about Tottenham, and we are also going to talk about kind of an update and letting everybody know where the Premier League table is at, what teams are looking to win, what teams might make the Champions League, who might go down, all that stuff. And then we'll end it off with Do You Remember? Luke, let's go ahead and get into it. We've got an action-packed Friday episode today.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right. So let's go ahead and get it started. Let's start here. So Ian Rappaport tweeted that the Bengals have been in conversations centered around trading left tackle Jonah Williams. This obviously following the signing of Orlando Brown. I feel like you could get some pretty solid compensation right now in the offensive lineman market.
I do too. There wasn't a lot, free agency wise, and I don't really feel like personally there's a lot in the draft. So I feel like a lot of teams would go pretty aggressive for a left tackle.
Yeah, like there's some guys still out on the market, but after Orlando Brown got signed, now Laramie Tunsil signed an extension. Taylor Lewan is on the board. It's not the most enticing pickup right now with, injury history, the PED suspension, everything like that stacked up against him. It's not a fantastic idea. He's still a great offensive lineman, but I think you're right. The trade value could be tremendous for a left tackle right now, especially if there's a team that really needs one. And, everybody needs improvements on the offensive line. It doesn't matter who you are. So if you can get Jonah Williams, I'd probably say like a second round pick would probably do, maybe even later in the draft, because the Bengals don't want to hold on to Jonah Williams. He's been good. He's started, I think, 45 games is what I saw. But you have Orlando Brown now. So you shouldn't be hard pressed to get good compensation out of this. It should really just be a matter of finding something that you see value in and also just kind of getting him off the books.
Yeah, I wonder if trading Jonah Williams will also kind of like open the door for what the Bengals are going to do to address their safety spot, because obviously they lost Von Bell, they lost Jesse Bates. Those are two really solid, a super solid safety pair there. One of them's the captain of your defense. The other one's a Pro Bowl caliber player. I kind of wonder if maybe a pick here from this trade will be kind of like what they'll use to maybe go safety in the draft.
Yeah, I think that would be a very good way to go about it. Let's talk about Juju, though. He's had some interesting things going on because it's Juju. There's no such thing as a week of news without Juju Smith-Schuster. But he was asked about what enticed him to join the Patriots. He said it was Belichick, which, that's not a surprise. But when you think of Juju Smith-Schuster, and you think of Bill Belichick, you were looking at two people who are just the complete opposite human being.
Yeah. What did I say on the podcast a couple weeks ago? Like Juju's Fortnite and fun, and Bill Belichick's like the Marines.
Yeah, it was something similar to that, and you're completely right.
Yeah, Belichick, obviously, regardless of what kind of player you are, if you're a fan of football in general, Belichick talking to you, him wanting you to come play for the Patriots, I'm sure, there's not a lot of better things you could hear as a football player in free agency. But uh, again, I don't know why Juju, out of all people, is going to be on the Patriots. They're polar opposites, as you said.
Yeah, and he's not going to be wearing that number 9 that he wore with the Chiefs because it would cost him a nice $100,000 to pay off Matthew Judon. When I read this, I was super confused. Looked up the rules. So the NFL has a rule that requires players who change their numbers to buy all the unsold jerseys that they've already printed with their names and numbers.
Oh
So
my god.
Matthew Judon would be required to buy every number 9 Judon jersey currently on the market for the NFL. So Juju would have to reimburse Judon for that, plus pay him whatever amount Judon wanted for the number. And Juju says that's just too much for him to pay.
100K is too much for Juju.
It's just a
Doubt it.
number. Like
It is a number.
it's not that big of a like. I know in the MLB, I think it happened with Francisco Lindor when he went to the Mets. He like bought somebody a Rolex so that he could get his number.
Interesting.
But with
Uh,
this NFL rule, it changes everything
yeah.
because
Is
imagine
100K the flat fee for
no,
everything you mentioned?
I think that that's just where it's at right now.
Okay.
Um, but like for different players, it'd be different because like if it's just some no name like offensive lineman, there's not gonna be like any jerseys printed with his name on them.
Yeah, but here we're talking about, one of the best edge rushers in the league.
Yeah, so obviously it's gonna cost you a pretty penny. But
Interesting.
let's talk about the Vikings because CBS Sports released an interesting graphic that really just tells a story here. And so the Vikings are the only team with an above 500 record, a franchise with an above 500 record in the Super Bowl era to not win a Super Bowl. And they have the third best winning percentage at 562 franchise win percentage, only behind the Cowboys at 597 and the Steelers at 590, which is a huge drop off. Congratulations, Luke.
Thank you. A lot of those were not in my lifetime.
That's fair.
But
You got a couple of those Super Bowls.
yeah, for sure. Just what an interesting graphic. I never realized the Vikings were historically, this good. I mean, 562 is not bad at all. I mean, they're third best here, only behind the Steelers and the Cowboys, who everybody knows are, historically good franchises. I know, the Vikings have always had good teams, it feels like, but interesting that they've never won a Super Bowl. How many have they been to? I know they've lost to the Steelers once in a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I don't know of any other Super Bowls they've been to.
I feel like they've been to a couple, probably some early ones for sure, but definitely none in recent memory. And like it just surprised because everybody on this list has two except the Vikings who have zero.
Yeah, it's not even like they, have one. They literally have zero. That's crazy.
Yeah, so like the Rams, the Colts, the Raiders, like all of them. Well, so really the Rams and Colts, they're just above 500 at 518, 519 respectively. They both have two Super Bowls. The Dolphins and Ravens both have two Super Bowls. Ravens are just behind the Vikings in win percentage. The Dolphins at a 552. This is just astounding to see. That the Vikings just it's not just now. It's not just that they choke in the playoffs now. It's that they've done it for their entire existence.
Yeah, and here I'm actually going to bounce off of that. This is crazy. I never knew this about the Minnesota Vikings. So in 1973, they went to their first Super Bowl, lost to the Dolphins. A year later, they went back, lost to the Steelers. That was in 1974 and 1973. Then they took a year off in 1975, went back in 1976, and lost to the Raiders. So they've been to three Super Bowls, all in the 70s, lost every single one of them.
Yeah, and they've handed out three to people on this list.
Yeah, exactly.
That is wild. All right, let's talk a little bit of pro day news because we've got a ton of pro days going on since the combine concluded. The Panthers met with Ohio State quarterback CJ Stroud on Tuesday in advance of the pro day on Wednesday. He had some throwing sessions, some workouts, and they plan to have another private meeting with Stroud before the draft in Charlotte. At the pro day, there was a video that came out of Josh McCown talking to CJ Stroud. Josh McCown, now being the, I believe, quarterbacks coach in Carolina, said maybe when you live in Charlotte, we'll find a court, referencing them talking about playing a game of horse. So this definitely makes me think that Stroud to the Panthers is certainly a high possibility. I think that he fits there the best. I like CJ Stroud over Bryce Young just in this draft in general. And from what the Panthers are building right now, this pick would make sense.
It does. And I think it makes so much sense that CJ Stroud should go ahead and start talking to the realtors, man. He needs to just go ahead and buy a house in Charlotte. Because I think it really needs to happen. I mean, there's been a lot of talk of how good Anthony Richardson is, a lot of talk of how good Bryce Young is, and other guys like Will Levis. But CJ Stroud, in my opinion, by far the best quarterback you're going to get in this draft. You gave up an absolute fuckload of shit to get this pick, and I think you got to go with clearly the best option in CJ Stroud here. So I like it. I like the connections that they're already trying to make with him.
Look, you might have just said one of the best phrases I've ever heard, which is a fuckload of shit.
Fuckload of shit.
That's fantastic. I'd love to see what that correlates to in weight, but
so conversion.
But let's talk. So, of course, Stroud showed out at this pro day. I think everybody knew he was going to, but it seemed like all the scouts were gushing over Marvin Harrison Jr., who isn't even eligible this year to be in the draft. He, I believe, will be eligible next year, but plenty of early reactions from coaches and personnel guys. Somebody tweeted out just a couple of things they heard. Incredible. Really impressive. Unfortunately, not draft eligible, and he looked like a dude. So everybody's loving Marvin Harrison Jr. One person actually, or one scout texted a reporter and said it was like window shopping at a Lamborghini dealership for the model that doesn't come out till next year.
What a comparison there. That's just such a cool comparison to make.
That's such an NFL front office member thing to say, because if it was me, I'd be like, yeah, it's like, I don't know, wait, like looking through the windows at Chick-fil-A before they open on Monday.
Literally, yeah. I don't know what it's like to even see a Lamborghini dealership, to be honest with you, Grayson.
Yeah, I think I've like driven past one, but that's about it. Definitely haven't gone in.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen. I went to the Ferrari store in Italy, which was really cool, but I don't even think it was a dealership. I think it was just a store,
Interesting.
like with merch and stuff. But Marvin Harrison Jr., of course, he is not draft eligible. But I mean, we saw his dad in the NFL with Peyton Manning. That was so much fun to watch. I'm kind of in the same boat as these scouts, man. I cannot wait until he's in the league.
Yeah, the guy is fantastic. He obviously made like the best catch of the year in college football. He showed off some ridiculous body control on the sideline. Like the way that he was able to, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen this catch. He is catching it like out of bounds, both of his feet in the air, and he's falling back, and both of his feet are lined up out of bounds, and just sticks his right foot out and just pushes it down into the ground in bounds and makes a catch. Like, it's crazy. Obviously not an NFL catch, but still ridiculous to see what this kid is capable of.
I wonder if he's the kind of talent that we see get picked number one, like over all of the quarterbacks. I wonder if he's going to be one of those guys.
I think it's hard, especially next year, because if there are teams looking quarterback, they're obviously not going to go wide receiver early. I think that if there is a team that ends up pretty early in the draft that can get a wide receiver, they'd probably trade down and still get Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he could definitely be top 10, but it's just not a position that we traditionally see in like the top 5.
You don't think he's one of those, outlier talents that's just like, if we're at one, you can't pass on him no matter what you have to fill on your team?
Yeah, I don't know. Like if it's the Titans or the Ravens, yeah, you could get him, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's that many teams that would be willing to put a first overall pick on Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I got you. I don't know. Well, I mean, his talent speaks for himself, and like I said earlier, I just can't wait till he's in the league. I wonder if he'll be anything like his dad or better. Who
I
knows?
don't know, man. He looks real good, but Bryce Young also met with the Panthers the other night, as well as with the Raiders ahead of his pro day. Vegas currently holds the 7th pick, which I don't think Bryce Young would fall that far. Maybe there's a chance the Raiders trade up, but it's kind of getting to crunch time, and I don't, I don't know why the Panthers are even giving Bryce Young the time of day at this point. It appears to me, and in my mind, makes the most sense that CJ Stroud is the guy.
Yeah, and I definitely think he should be the guy. Of course, you have Bryce Young. Obviously, he's the SEC guy, so right off the bat, he's already going to be highly touted. But like, you cannot pass on CJ Stroud, man. You can't. Um, Bryce Young's definitely going to be good, but if you got the first pick, I'm going CJ Stroud over Bryce Young all day long.
Yeah. And then Boston College wide receiver Zay Flowers, who is a highly touted wide receiver in this draft, had back to back dinners with the Saints and Giants before his Friday pro day. Per sources, it seems like he is going to be a mid first round guy. He's a projected first round pick, of course. But the big story here is that Zay Flowers put on 13 pounds of muscle in pre
Jesus
combine training.
Christ. Damn. How does he do that? What's the secret?
I don't know, but I don't know if you saw the pictures of him, but it's ridiculous. Like he just somehow got wider.
I actually did not see the pictures of him. Did he post like progress pictures that were just like completely ridiculous?
Yeah, I think he posted pictures like um he posted a picture a couple of weeks before the combine and then posted one like the week of, and it was just crazy.
Dang. Well, good for him. I'm trying to see how much. Okay, so he's 5'10", 172. I think that was his college weight though. So he could be at like 185, 186 ish.
Yeah.
That's a big jump. That's good. That is really good. And I hope a lot of NFL scouts see the fact that like just the fact that he added this weight, where he can show commitment to, a certain task. And I feel like that's honestly impressive in its own right. Just the fact that he was able to add that much to himself.
Yeah. We've got a ton more wide receiver talk here. So Tuesday was reported that the Browns have not closed the door on trading for Jerry Jeudy, but come Wednesday, they traded for Elijah Moore from the Jets for their 42nd overall pick. And I think this is a fantastic pickup for the Browns. But at that point, I feel like that does close the door on trading for Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I mean it has to, right? They've just given up. What did you say? A 42nd pick? That's in the second round. Personally, I think that's a little bit too much for a player like Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore can be good, but I don't know about second round good. But yeah, if you've already given up a second round pick, I don't think you're going to be able to trade for Jerry Judy there.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be difficult, but it's also a matter of like, do you have room? Because you've already got Amari Cooper, you've got Elijah Moore. There's not really a spot for Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, Elijah Moore probably should be a third wide receiver. If that is just how it should be. But I feel like with Jerry Jeudy and Amari Cooper, I don't think those two would work well in a team together.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of putting two number one wide receivers on the same team. I think it doesn't work out well, typically in the locker room. But I feel like Jerry Jeudy certainly is playing the number one wide receiver role with the Broncos. I'm not sure how well he would do if he wasn't getting the same amount of targets he is. So I don't know. And he's not better than Amari Cooper. So I don't know. I think this move does close the door though.
I it definitely closes the door, but I have to disagree with you here. I don't think Jerry Judy whatsoever has taken that second step into becoming a wide receiver one. Cortland Sutton was fantastic on the Broncos, and I think he was actually the one who got most of the targets. Jerry Judy was on my fantasy team. Let's just say he didn't finish on my fantasy team. I don't know. I feel like with my opinion of him still being a wide receiver too, Amari Cooper and that Cleveland situation would have been perfect for him, but obviously, as we both agreed on, it's probably closed the door with the Elijah Moore trade.
Yeah, I don't know. This whole situation is weird because now with Elijah Moore out of New York, the Jets' interests in Odell Beckham have been described as very real. Obviously, he and Rodgers are close. He was on the list, or lack thereof, of people that Aaron Rodgers wanted in New York. So basically, at this point, it's a matter of Rodgers wants Odell, and are the Jets going to pick him up?
I I don't know. I know Odell followed Alan Lazard on Instagram or Twitter or something like that, and a lot of people on my feed were talking about it. What do you think? Do you think OBJ to the Jets or no?
I kind of think it's going to happen, especially once Rodgers gets there.
I agree with you. New York is the perfect market for Odell, and shit, he's already played there with the Giants in the same stadium, even. So I just don't know. The Jets have to be running out of money soon, right? I like this move for Odell, but monetarily for the Jets, I don't know. Where's this money coming from?
I don't know, but it did come out. Odell said it himself that he isn't actually asking for 20. Um,
Oh, okay.
so he was just mainly saying that, 4 is not enough. That's exactly what he said in his tweet. Me and Nathan talked about this on Wednesday's episode that it's probably more realistic that he's looking for something in like the 12 to 16 or 17 range, which I think if you get him for like 14, that's certainly manageable with what you have in New York.
I would take Odell on the Steelers for 14 mil.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
But
sure. Especially after Dan Orlovsky, what he said. But anyway, go
true.
ahead.
So this interest in Odell is obviously high. Meanwhile, the Jets picked up Mecole Hardman. So I, I honestly don't know what's going on here because you've already got Garrett Wilson. You just gave off Elijah Moore for arguably a very similar wide receiver in Mecole Hardman. Quick. He's pretty valuable in the return game as well. It's a very lateral move here, but you got a second round pick and then you pick up Mecole Hardman. I think it's a fantastic move. Mecole Hardman's been fantastic, especially after the catch. He gained 63.3% of his receiving yards after the catch over the last 3 seasons. It's good for third highest among wide receivers with a minimum of 100 receptions. And since 2019, Mecole Hardman averages 8.3 yards after the catch. That's second best to only Deebo Samuel with 9.5.
Wow. Okay, Mecole. Personally, last season, I would have liked to have seen Mecole Hardman. I do think he was hurt a little bit last season too, but I would have liked to have seen him try to take over more of that wide receiver one role in Kansas City. He didn't, but this Jets move is going to be awesome for him. I think. They're loading their team with all this talent. They're bringing in Aaron Rodgers, and like you said, Mecole Hardman for Elijah Moore essentially is a pretty lateral move. Except one might argue that Mecole Hardman has a little bit more potential. I think he's a lot younger than Elijah Moore, if I can remember. So I like this pickup for the Jets big time. And the stats that you brought up, I didn't realize that he was that nasty
Yeah, I think it's mainly a
in some
speed thing.
aspects of his game. Yeah.
And he also is kind of a screenplay wide receiver, especially because he was playing with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. He's not going to get the opportunity for the downfield passes. So slant screens work super well for Mecole Hardman. It works super well with his speed and his abilities. I think that's what makes him such a valuable wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree with that big time. And the fact that they're getting a guy like Alan Lazard, he's your opposite wide receiver. He's kind of your deep guy, or at least that's kind of how we've seen him with Aaron Rodgers in the past. So The Jets are having a phenomenal offseason, and it's been so fun to kind of like cover and pay attention to.
And so with this move, it once again poses the question, is there space in the wide receiver room? You have Garrett Wilson, now you have Mecole Hardman, and you have Alan Lazard.
And Corey Davis still, right?
I believe so. How
Yeah.
are you going to fit Odell into this scheme?
I think you can't, but it's one of those where the Jets just kind of, Grayson, are saying, fuck it. I think they're just trying to load their team up, is what it seems like. I don't think that, scheming them is really even on their mind. I think they're just trying to load up on the wide receiver spot. But if Odell is anything like he was in that Rams playoff run, I mean, he should definitely be probably wide receiver one or two, right? I mean, he'll fit in for sure.
Yeah, I think that he'd probably be wide receiver 2 to start the season. I think that I don't know. I feel like Alan Lazard and Garrett Wilson have a claim to 1 and 2, but Odell. I think Odell is better than Alan Lazard personally.
Yeah,
So
I
I
agree.
don't know. Maybe Odell would be 1. Maybe Garrett Wilson would be 1. Obviously, Lazard and Rogers have the longer connection here, the chemistry, but there's really no telling. It's just about how they draw him up, how Rogers reads the field.
Yeah. I guess like if I want to pose this question to you, if Odell does go to the New York Jets, what do you think like a Jets passing offense will actually look like in 2023?
I think it would look fantastic. That's the biggest thing is you have so many high level options here. It's not like a normal team is going to have like a very obvious, oh, this guy's the wide receiver 1, this guy's wide receiver 2, and then there's just a couple other guys behind him, a slot receiver, things like that. If they get Odell, they've got 4 guys that are worthy of getting targets.
Yeah, that is very true.
So I don't know. It definitely makes their passing game look very versatile because we know Rodgers can hit every zone on the field. You can send Odell deep. You can send Garrett Wilson deep. You can also run Garrett Wilson on slant routes, cut routes, anything he needs to do. But Mecole Hardman, fantastic on screens, slants, and then also Alan Lazard, solid, just kind of all around a solid wide receiver. I feel like he doesn't have a real specialty like most wide receivers, but he's just above average, I'd say, at most things when it comes to playing the position.
Yeah, plus you got Tyler Conklin at tight end, who didn't have a bad year at all last year. Plus Brees Hall, Ty Johnson, Zonovan Knight, Michael Carter. Oh god, dude, this team's just going to be so loaded. Dude, Zach Wilson, QB2. Joe
Uh,
Flacco is still on the team.
I fucking hate
Unbelievable.
Zach Wilson so much. Every time I hear his name, he's such a prick.
He really is just an asshole.
All right, well, let's move on from this Jets talk because it's making me really want to say they're going to win a Super Bowl. The Bills picked up former Patriots running back Damian Harris. I certainly don't think this closes the door on them making another running back move, but it appears that they're not one of the top 3 teams for Zeke. I actually just got that notification on my phone just a couple of minutes ago, but I still think that there's a possibility the Bills get another running back in this offseason.
I do too. I think the smartest way for them to get a second running back would probably be to go through the draft. They still have Devin Singletary, correct?
No, he signed with the Texans.
Okay, what about James Cook? He's definitely still in the Bills.
Yes, they do have James Cook.
You know what? Maybe it's my UGA biased. I think you rock with Damian Harris and James Cook. Because Damian Harris is by far a highly underrated pickup by the Bills. He was sick for the Patriots with Ramondre Stevenson. I think just ride it out with Damian Harris and James Cook. Damian Harris is already, I mean, leagues above Devin Singletary in my opinion. So yeah, just I think the Bills should just chill at running back. But if you're gonna get one, go to the draft.
Yep, I'm kind of in the same boat there. The Cowboys signed running back Ronald Jones. Obviously, this pickup is to back up Tony Pollard. Pollard actually signed his franchise tag today, and the Cowboys will have until July 17th to agree to a long-term deal with him. But This Ronald Jones move is pretty good. I think that Ronald Jones is a little bit of a volatile running back when it comes to just statistics and impact. If he gets high usage, he can be good, but sometimes it just isn't his day, and that happens too often. But we've seen good things out of him. He played very well with Leonard Fournette in Tampa. He didn't really get the looks he wanted with the Chiefs, but I still feel like he could be a very solid backup for Tony Pollard.
I do too. And to, kind of, I think this is worth mentioning as well, is we've seen the Cowboys with their two running back system for a couple of years now. I think the Cowboys are probably one of the best teams in the league at using two running backs. And I think Ronald Jones now is falling into probably the best situation he's ever going to fall in. Of course, he is the backup for Tony Pollard, but with what we've seen from the Cowboys in the past is that Ronald Jones still might get, a pretty decent amount of reps. And I'm pretty excited to see it. As I said previous, he's going into probably his best situation in Dallas as far as, being like a running back too. I actually really like this move for Dallas. I think Ronald Jones could show out here.
Yeah, I love it. And then the Falcons are planning on hosting veteran defensive lineman Calais Campbell, who was cut by the Ravens this offseason. I
Big,
think this is nothing but a good move here.
big move. I agree with you. How do you feel about it, Falcons fan? Let us know.
I love it. Look, we've made fantastic pickups for the defensive line already. I've gotten to the point where I've convinced myself that we are going to go defensive end in the draft. So I really like it.
Yeah, the Falcons are trying to look like the Commanders out there, signing all these D linemen.
Yeah, like you've already got Grady Jarrett. You picked up David Onyemata. Now you're looking to pick up Calais Campbell. The interior line looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and Calais Campbell, even though he's aging, I've said it on the podcast before. Trust me, as a fan of another AFC North team, Calais Campbell can still ball out for your team, and I think the Falcons they would be smart to at least talk to the guy. I mean, you have a lot of leverage with him getting older, and I want to say he's also dealt with some injuries even last year too. Get him for cheap. He's going to be a great locker room guy, probably to whoever the Falcons draft, and with their pick is probably an edge guy, right? And he'll also have Grady Jarrett to work with, plus the guy they got from New Orleans. I like this move a lot for Atlanta.
Yep, love it. Now let's talk a little bit more about Lamar Jackson.
Why, Grayson?
Because there's some weird shit going on. So, as of the beginning of the league year last Thursday, Lamar Jackson is free to speak with other teams. As of right now, he hasn't, at least not him. But a representative of Lamar has spoken to multiple teams on Lamar's behalf. Problem here, this representative is not certified by the NFLPA. So, teams can't they can't actually negotiate with this. So, this person has said that Lamar does not want a fully guaranteed contract. Another source says that Lamar is ready to move from the Ravens.
Wow.
We're not completely sure who this is. It's believed to be Saint Omni, who is it's actually not. It actually came out today. I'm looking at an article right now. They've informed the league that Ken Francis is the guy who's been talking with them. So not Saint Omni, but a similar situation happened last year when Roquan Smith had a guy named Saint Omni, the director of football at Lifeline Financial Group, was reaching out to NFL teams. Omni's not a certified agent, but he helped negotiate Roquan's 5-year, $100 million deal, which had $60 million guaranteed. And just this offseason, St. Omni helped negotiate Laramie Tunsil's new 3-year, $75 million deal, which also had $60 million guaranteed. So, we're looking at a similar situation here. The NFL office is fucking losing its mind right now because they're like hastily trying to be like, listen, don't talk to this guy. He doesn't, he's not certified by the NFLPA. You can't negotiate with him, blah, 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 blah. But it appears that they haven't had a problem with this in the past because obviously Roquan got a big deal. Laramie Tunsil got a huge deal as well. I think this only does good things for Lamar.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if he keeps going down this route of not being represented by someone who has certification through the NFLPA. Really interesting. So, is it against the rules to do this, or because we you just mentioned that Roquan and Laramie Tunsil have both negotiated deals through people that aren't certified by the NFLPA. So, is it against the rules or what?
So it's not technically against the rules to have people help you. And, anybody theoretically could just reach out and be like, this is, I'm representing this guy. This is whatever. But they can't negotiate with him. So technically, the NFL, like any NFL team, cannot talk to anybody but Lamar Jackson. They can, get whatever information they want out of other people, but because Lamar Jackson doesn't have a certified agent, they can only speak with Lamar Jackson over negotiating a contract.
Interesting. I wonder if this is going to kind of domino effect, and then a lot of other big athletes that are, hitting the free agent market will start using guys that aren't certified by the NFLPA.
Yeah, and it kind of works out because most agents, they have their certain commission that they get off of whatever contracts you agree with. So, if Lamar doesn't actually have an agent per se, he just has people helping him negotiate, he could kind of figure out a way to be like, okay, well, I'll just pay you this flat rate no matter what I get paid.
Yeah. Interesting. Very interesting.
So yeah, it definitely changes some things up. So this is an ongoing situation, but we'll just have to see because this Lamar Jackson saga is dragging on too long.
It really is. I'm at the point now, Grayson, where it is not entertaining to me. I think it's interesting to read into and see what he's up to, but it's just kind of it's nothing new.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about another situation that's dragged on far too long. The Commanders have another bidder. Obviously, Dan Snyder has still not sold this damn franchise.
Oh Lord.
The new bidder is Canadian billionaire Steve Apostolopoulos. I think that's right. He is the newest potential bidder. He took a tour of the Commanders stadium and facilities the other day. Just some background on Steve. Not going to try the last name again. First off, I tried to look him up. Doesn't have a Wikipedia page. First red flag. Don't trust a billionaire with a no Wikipedia page.
Number one sign he might be a fucko.
Okay. He went to Harvard, so that makes him book smart. But I don't
Oh, I get.
I don't really care if he went to Harvard.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick went to Harvard.
Yeah.
Exactly. No one
Plenty of
cares.
guys. But there is another bidder that makes me much more excited.
Oh my god, I just read it. Please let this happen.
So
God.
Monday it was reported that Magic Johnson is in the running for the Commanders.
Yo, come on. Let Magic take control of the Commanders.
That sounds like so much more fun.
It does, but does Magic have $7 billion?
No, of course not. But he certainly is part of an ownership group. That would be the case here. Just like how A-Rod was going to buy the Mets. Like, it obviously wasn't just going to be A-Rod. It was going to be a bunch of people. And actually, A-Rod is now a part owner of the Timberwolves. But that's with a group of people. That's what a majority of people do, other than, like, fucking Steve Cohen and guys like that buy MLB franchises. But
Gotcha.
it would certainly be part of a group. And I don't know. I think this is a fantastic idea. So, having a former athlete as an owner, though it hasn't, always worked out for everybody, I think it's a good idea, and I love Magic Johnson.
I think with me, Grayson, is the MLS has obviously recently had some owners come in that are just really cool people. Like you got Matthew McConaughey in Austin, you got Will Ferrell in LA. Oh my gosh, I think there's one more.
Well, David Beckham.
Is there one more
has
that I'm missing? David Beckham is another one. I like this the kind of new trend of famous people buying teams, and I think Magic Johnson would be really cool in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. And, anything to get Dan Snyder out.
Yeah, of course.
All right, well, let's move into the Texans. They picked up linebacker Denzel Perryman on a 1 year deal. Just another pretty solid pickup for the Texans. It's crazy how many people they've picked up just in the last couple of days. Dalton Schultz, Devin Singletary, now Denzel Perryman, along with a long list of people that they've picked up in the last week. They've made fantastic moves. Obviously, a lot of people want to play for D'Amico Ryans. That's how I see it here. And with the way it looks right now, most likely Bryce Young's going to be their quarterback. So, look, things look very good right now in Houston.
Yeah, I was just about to say, if you're a Texans fan, I mean, your franchise might be kind of turning around. It might be the second resurgence. You know, your first one was with D Hop and Deshaun Watson. This might be the second coming.
I don't know. I think their first resurgence was like Arian Foster and JJ Watt.
Were they like playoff team good though? I
I
don't
think
ever
they
remember them
made
being in the
I think they
playoffs.
made the playoffs. Just they weren't like fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, those definitely are two good players that you just mentioned. But okay, so yeah, well, we can say third resurgence then. But this resurgence is pretty exciting though. It's I think it's higher in quantity of the other resurgences that they've had, and they've just brought in a lot of good players. And this linebacker Denzel Perryman, you know, he's 30 years old, but he's been around for a while. He offers some experience to that linebacker group, and I think he can still play at a high level. So I like the pickup a lot.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And then George Kittle went on this past weekend, or sorry, on this past weekend with Theo Vaughn. And Kittle talked about the stress that can be caused from negative plays circulating on Twitter for NFL players. Not sure the fans realize that shitting on a player on your favorite team can actually have a negative detriment on your team's success. I think this is a fantastic point, but at the same time, stop being a bitch.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't get booed at halftime by your own home fans, it's you need to be in a different sport probably.
Yeah, it's just a matter of uh, like don't get your feelings hurt about these things. Like it's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal, and if anything, take it positively. The Steelers fans are synonymous with booing their team at halftime. And but with the Steelers organization, I feel like it's understood that it's tough love because Grayson, if you're a Steelers player, who's going to be the first group of people to have your back whenever a player starts trash talking or a fight breaks out or you start playing well? It's going to be your fans. So I understand what George Kittle's saying, and it's good to kind of bring attention to it. But also, stop being a bitch. Take it in like a tough love way instead of like a bad negative way.
But also like is there a 49ers fan in the world that is talking shit about George Kittle?
Probably not.
I feel like that's just not even possible.
Yeah, maybe he's speaking for other people.
Could
Who
be.
knows?
That's definitely a possibility because as a Falcons fan, a lot of people get shit on by the social media following.
Yeah, I mean that is true. But you just gotta take it to the teeth, man. Use it as motivation.
And then some very sad news to hear. So tight end Foster Moreau learned that he has Hodgkin's lymphoma during a physical conducted by the Saints medical staff. Moreau will be stepping away from football while he, figures everything out and most likely begins treatment. This is such sad news, especially because like he was doing just like a routine physical with the Saints medical staff and this kind of news is just crazy to find out through that.
Yeah, absolutely horrible. I absolutely feel for Foster Moreau and his family. Pretty much everybody involved here. Foster Moreau is a kind of tight end that can still play meaningful. He can still get meaningful downs and reps in this league. And as you said, just a routine, physical, and he finds this out. That must have been absolutely crushing. I'm personally crushed to hear this information. Yeah, Foster Moreau, our love and support goes out to you because that's horrible.
Yeah, and what's even crazier about this situation is that this is not the first time that the Saints medical staff have found a serious disease during a physical. Long snapper and also famed magician on America's Got Talent, John Dorenbos, found out that he had an aortic aneurysm that required open heart surgery in a physical with the Saints medical staff.
Uh, I mean, I guess props to the Saints medical staff. I mean, they're able to find this stuff during physicals. Of course, I'm not in the medical field. I don't know if it's something that you can always look for in a sports physical, but I mean, props to the Saints medical staff for at least finding it, right, and letting players know, like, hey, there's something serious here that we weren't even looking for, but we managed to find anyway. So, props to the Saints medical staff, but super unfortunate news though.
Yeah, it is crazy. Last bit of NFL news here: the Bengals are hosting the University of Cincinnati's Pro Day at their indoor facility. When I saw this, I thought it was great because this is kind of them repaying the university for using their indoor facility for so long because the Bengals just didn't have one for the longest time.
And now they get to use theirs.
Yeah,
That's nice.
I just like it, when I had heard about this happening like a long time ago, like years ago, that the Bengals, whenever it's cold, they practice at the University of Cincinnati's indoor facility, and I just it just amazed me that the Bengals didn't have one. Like they play in Ohio, of course it's going to be cold and like the weather's going to be bad. Why would you not already have an indoor facility?
Yeah, I know. Super strange, but hey, at least they have one now, and at least they're repaying the University of Cincinnati.
Yeah. All right, Luke. Let's go ahead and get into these top 10 edge rushers.
Let's do it, man. I'm excited.
All right. Who's starting?
Go ahead. What
All
you do?
right. I'll take it. My number 10 is Zadarius Smith of the Vikings.
Okay.
He was fantastic last year, and he's actually kind of getting up there in age, but he has such a big rushing impact. Fourth in total pressures and win rate. Just a really impressive pass rusher for some time. Um, he's always been like a pretty good athlete, but like he's not like crazy. Like a lot of the guys on this list are just like ridiculous athletes all around. But he's very technical. He gets like he's so good at winning against the exterior linemen. It's crazy how good he is at the defensive end position.
I like it. I actually went for another Vikings player. I went with Danielle Hunter or Daniel Hunter. I don't know.
Daniil.
His Daniil. Thank you. Ended the season with 10 and a half sacks, which is pretty high for this list. 46 solo tackles, which is also pretty high for this list. One forced fumble. He also, this is a pretty interesting stat, led all defensive linemen in pressures that resulted in a sack for his teammate. Kind of interesting there. I wanted to throw that out there. I think the number was 10. So that's a pretty solid, sack number. 10 sacks that you were kind of involved in there. He also was sixth in total pressures with 70. I went with Mr. Hunter at number 10.
Fantastic stuff there. All right. My number 9, I'm going to go with Rashawn Gary of the Green Bay Packers. I thought he had a fantastic season. I originally actually put Joey Bosa here, but as much as I hate him, I didn't even realize he only played 5 games this season. So obviously knocked him off the list. Throwing in Rashawn Gary. He had a great season. 21 solo tackles. That's not a big deal coming from an outside linebacker who primarily pass rushes, but 6 sacks, 1 forced fumble. He had a pretty good season overall. And look, his pass rushing is fantastic. He's a pretty good run stopper on the edge, not ridiculously good, but a young guy as well. Last year, only his 4th season in the NFL out of Michigan. I think the guy's got huge upside. 13 and a half stuffs this season, which is
Oh,
crazy. In past years, he's only totaled 6. Or sorry, he only had 6 this year. I was looking at the wrong thing. 6 this year. The year before, he had 5.5. Year before that, 2 and none in his rookie year with Green Bay. He's becoming a fantastic player, really paying off as a 12th overall pick in the draft. I think Rashawn Gary is definitely going to continue to grow and continue to move up this list year by year.
I like it. So your first 2 picks are guys that I did not have.
I
So
like that.
finally, we can add some variety to these top 10. My number 9, I went with Montez Sweat of the Commanders. This guy's an absolute dog on a D line with other dogs. 8 sacks, 27 tackles, no forced fumbles, but he had a career high in his pass rush grade. Once again, I'm using the PFF grades, not PPF, PFF grades.
Good.
He also had an 80.5 run defense grade, which was 7th. So, kind of a guy that you're going to get a lot of mixture from. He's not just your pass rush guy. He's not just your run defense guy. He's both. He also led his position in average depth of tackle against the run. So he's always getting behind the line there against the run. And like I said, he also had his career high pass rush grade. I like Montez Sweat at number 9.
All right. At number 8, I've got Hassan Reddick of the Eagles. I think he's been fantastic. First year in Philly. They go to the Super Bowl. He's part of a defense that led the league in sacks. 16 sacks this season. Like, absolutely outstanding. I probably could have put him higher. I'd like to see a little bit more impact on the run stopping, and that would push him up because the guys above him are kind of more dual threat in my eyes than Hassan Reddick. But just, as an off ball linebacker, he has been ridiculous. And, he's a little bit, he's similar to Micah Parsons in their builds, but I feel like Hassan Reddick doesn't quite have the same athleticism as Parsons, and that's what kind of moves him down this list to me. Is just how he looks on the field. He doesn't really shine other than when he's getting to the quarterback.
I literally 100% agree with everything you just said. Literally everything you just said. And I'll get to Hassan Reddick once I make it to him. But for my number 8, I like Jalen Phillips of the Dolphins. This was a guy that flew under my radar. To be honest, I never even really heard of this guy. But he finished last season with 7 sacks, 37 solo tackles, 1 forced fumble. He was 6th in pass rush grade among his position. He was also top 10 in WAR, total pressures, and his run defense grade. So once again, kind of like Montez Sweat, just another solid all-around guy. He doesn't have, the most insane stats in pass rush or run defense, but he's got everything you want in kind of your edge rusher / like D lineman there. So Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins at my number 8.
All right. I like that pick. Guy that didn't make my list. At number 7, I've got Matthew Judon of the New England Patriots. Guy's a freak, man. 15 and a half sacks, 3 passes defended, 7 stuffs. Like, he's got the long red sleeves on. Oh, man. Like, it's crazy. The dude is just an absolute beast. And he's just really made a leap over these past couple years. So he was in 15th in the preseason rankings among most pass rushers. This was just according to a site that I had found. And he was doing so well. And he's fantastic at pressuring the quarterback, just being a pass rusher. And I just feel like what he can do and like with his build is so good because he comes in at 6'3", 261. So he's a pretty tall guy, but not, the tallest. He's definitely tall for an edge, but definitely makes more of a physical impact than what you would think at his size. And I think he just does it perfectly. It's maybe not the cleanest sometimes. Sometimes he kind of slips up a little bit, but he's athletic enough to recover whenever he makes a mistake and really turns it around.
I love the Judon pick. That was actually a guy that didn't make my list.
Wow.
And I definitely am feeling like I left him off, not like I, not like I purposely left him off. I feel like I may have got him here. But, when I was doing my research, his run defense is not that was what knocked him off for me. Was his run defense. He was not highly touted enough. And that's what made this list so hard for me, Grayson, is I was like, obviously when I think of edge, first stat I think of is obviously sacks. But, kind of doing more research, there's so much more into it. So unfortunately, Matthew Judon did not make my list, but he is for sure an honorable mention. What a player for the Patriots. Anyway, My number 7, Hassan Reddick. Dude had 16 sacks. That was tied for second. Crazy number. 35 solo tackles, which is average among my list. 5 forced fumbles, which is tied for first, which is, that's really good. You want to, get to the quarterback and not only just sack them, but also, force a fumble or two. Very good stat there. 68 total pressures on the year, which is a career high for him. I really like that. He also was top 5 pass rush grade for PFF. So Hassan Reddick had an awesome season. I didn't even know who he was before last season even started, but Hassan Reddick was a fantastic player.
Love it. Yeah, he definitely deserves the credit this season because he's made a huge jump. But at number 6 for me, I've got Florida State. Florida State Seminole, Brian Burns of the Carolina Panthers. The guy is just ridiculous. And he's kind of different from a lot of the guys at his position because there's guys like Myles Garrett, who's, he just uses his size to his advantage, and, Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, guys that are certainly on this list to come. They do something different than Brian Burns, and it's that Brian Burns is flexible. That's what makes his pass rush absolutely ridiculous. He's just an absolute menace to offensive tackles because they just can't keep up with his movement. And the way he moves around, obviously attributed to his 12 and a half sacks, 63 total tackles, 12 and a half stuffs, 3 passes defended, which is crazy from a defensive end, 1 forced fumble as well. The guy is an absolute animal and is certainly going to contribute to a very good Panthers lineup next year.
I like the Brian Burns pick. That was another guy that didn't make my list. Yeah, Brian Burns is very solid. So at my number 6, I went with another Eagles player, Josh Sweat. Another player, I've said it a lot, another player that flew under my radar. This guy had 11 sacks, 31 solo tackles, 1 forced fumble, and an interception. He also had top 10 grades in his run and pass defense. So kind of like the other guys on my list, just another all-around solid guy that you're going to get, good play against the run, good play versus the pass. So Josh Sweat made my number 6.
All right. Yeah, I totally overlooked Josh Sweat. Don't really know how, but I definitely did. But at number 5, I've got Max Crosby, Mad Max of the Las Vegas Raiders. The guy is just an absolute beast. Like, he's strong, he's aggressive. That's like his biggest thing. He is so aggressive off the snap. He'll push you over, he'll throw you to the side. It doesn't matter. Big pass pressure, huge run stopping ability as well. 12 and a half sacks. Also had 20 stuffs this past season. The guy is just physically ridiculous, and he's got a burst of speed. He can bend around defenders. He can throw them on the ground. He's crazily crazy enough. One of the only guys in my top 10 that was drafted outside of the first 3 rounds of the draft.
Wow.
So kind of an underrated guy as well. But look, the sack numbers went up. He just continues to improve as a run defender. He's becoming better and better every season, and a huge inspiration to many people. He obviously very public about, him dealing with alcoholism and all of the different things. He's, covered in tattoos, kind of commemorating his fight. The guy is just on and off the field, a beast.
Yeah, I love talking about Max Crosby. And you had him at 5, right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll get to him on my list soon. Interesting. Okay. My number 5, you're gonna bully me, Grayson, but I just have to prove to you why I'm right here. Alex Highsmith.
What?
Will make my top 5.
What?
14 and a half sacks puts him at 6th. 38 solo tackles, 5 forced fumbles. He's the one that's tied with Hassan Reddick for first. But here's the thing, though. The Steelers have nowhere near the record that they have, which was just above 500, if Alex Highsmith does not show up when TJ Watt is out. And to me, that's a pretty big stat. Of course, it's not a number. You can't really quantify that. But I think his defensive play really was our pass rush for the entire 2022 season. He was the man. Also, I had him pretty high on my list because of this reason too. 4 out of 5 defensive categories, he was graded a 70 or higher, which is kind of your above average there. And of course, I don't have the actual stats of that he was, graded 70 or higher. I don't have those 4 stats, but I assume it would be like maybe war, um, and your run defense and your pass rush defense. So I like Alex Highsmith. He was kind of a guy that could do it all. He's high on the sack list. He's got a lot of forced fumbles. I love Alex Highsmith at number 5. Very underrated season last season.
Yeah, I think he had a great season. And I looked at him before I made this list. What I saw here was that compared to 2021, it seemed like in 2022, with TJ being out for a decent amount of games, it was hard to say that he didn't sacrifice his run stopping ability because last season 6 sacks, 15 and a half stuffs. So obviously the pass rush wasn't quite as there. But then this season, it seemed like he fully committed to the pass rush and kind of gave up a little bit on the run stopping with 14 and a half sacks, only 6 and a half stuffs. So it seems like to me, he just needs to get better at doing both.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think to his credit though, he's proven that he can do both with this season. Look, had to completely adapt to TJ being hurt. And I feel like he did that very well. 14 and a half sacks, which puts Alex Highsmith at 6th. I feel like that's a name that you wouldn't normally see up there. So I feel like what you just mentioned is definitely true. It is a very good reason to have him off of this top 10. But if anything, I'm just going to kind of take it and say that it makes him more dynamic. He just needs to, as you said, become more balanced.
All right. Well, that brings us to the number 4, where I feel like there's a very obvious top 4.
Yes.
Okay. I've only got TJ Watt at 4 because he didn't play the whole season. That's
Okay.
it. That's the only reason. But TJ Watt is at 4. The guy is just absolutely fucking ridiculous. In a full healthy season, he's probably number 1 on this list. But what he did in 10 games was phenomenal. 5.5 sacks, 7 stuffs. The guy is just a beast. He forced a fumble as well. He just does it all. He's physical. Yeah. He's super strong. Got great technique. He wins so many pass rushes, and he wins it up high too. He doesn't have to get low, bend around. He's super physical, vicious with his hands. That's what makes him so good at pass rushing.
And his 2 interceptions, both on Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that, but that was in my notes. That's crazy.
Yeah, and those picks, he's catching interceptions at like just jumping up in the air as a D lineman. But I understand, batting down a ball, but that ball is fresh out of Burrow's hands. It's coming in hot, and he was still able to pick him off twice. TJ Watt was a player that didn't make my list though, Grayson.
Really?
Yeah, just because the amount of games that he played. I tried to look for the most healthy guys who logged in a full season. So my number 4 was Micah Parsons. Oh man, what is there to say about Micah Parsons? 13 and a half sacks, dog, 42 solo tackles, which is pretty high on this list, dog, 3 forced fumbles, crazy. He had 90 pressures, which was tied for first. Second highest pass rush grade, and the 3rd best win rate. What more could you want there? And just a kind of little side note here, just a personal opinion. Grayson, have you ever seen 6'3", 45 or 245 move like that?
I certainly haven't.
He's just a ridiculous athlete. And I know we've talked about it on the podcast before, but that NFC Championship game where whoever that poor right tackle was on the 49ers, that literally just got moved by Micah Parsons. And I think it was like with one hand or something crazy like that. Just shoved him out of the way. Absolutely freak of nature in Micah Parsons. So I had him at number 4.
All right. I'm still kind of floored by the fact that TJ is not on your list.
That's why I put Alex Highsmith on there. I had to interject my Steelers bias somehow, but it wasn't going to be with TJ.
Yeah, well, I couldn't even reason putting a Falcon on here. So, all right, number 3. number 3 seems like underrating this guy, but it's Myles Garrett. I feel like I could have certainly put him higher. This is now 2 straight seasons of 16 sacks, 8.5 stuffs. He's just, he's giant. 6'4", 272, giant arms, like oh my God. He's like a physical anomaly. He's the entire package when it comes down
Yeah.
to it. He's
And just
ridiculous.
wait till you give this guy a helmet in his hand.
Yeah, that's true. He could beat the shit out of you with a helmet. He could also fucking dunk on you. Like, he's an alien. Let's be honest. He's tied for so he was the 16 sacks were fantastic. First in overall win rate, first in win rate on straight dropbacks. There's not a single human being on this earth that can stop Myles Garrett. If you gave him 10 attempts, they might stop him once, and it's because they tripped him.
Yeah, that's a pretty good assumption there. Was that it for your number 3?
Yeah, I'm kind of just speechless looking at Myles Garrett's stats.
I'll get to him in a second, but for my number 3, and I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised you had this guy at 5th. I went with Mad Max here. 12 and a half sacks, which was tied for 8th. So not very high in the sack department, but I feel like Mad Max, he was kind of one of those overall balanced run pass kind of guys. So you're not going to see a lot of sacks with him. But as you brought up, 58 solo tackles, that's a pretty high number among my list. I want to say that's actually like by far the best or the most tackles that I have in my top 10. 3 forced fumbles, which puts him tied at 6, not bad at all. 81 pressures, which puts him tied at 3rd. Top 3 run defense grade, though. So pretty good there. And he was actually first in WAR among his position, which is kind of why I put him all the way at 3. I feel like the WAR stat does him pretty good here. So I went with Max Crosby at 3.
Yeah, guy's just so good. Yeah, I'll be honest. I probably should have put him over TJ. But you know, he's on the list and he got his shine.
For sure.
All right, number 2. So I made an interesting decision here.
Uh-oh.
I was so certain that this guy was going to be 1. Then I made this list and I decided to put him at 2. It's Nick Bosa. All right. Now let me reason with you here. And I'm mainly going to have to reason with you when I say my number 1, which process of elimination. But
yeah.
Nick Bosa obviously won the defensive player of the year. Easily the best, probably defensive end from this past year. He's unbelievable. Most sacks, most pressures. The guy's crazy. 2nd highest pressure rate overall, 4th highest in true passing sets. He's explosive. He's strong. He's super technical as a pass rusher, and he's one of the stronger run defenders at the defensive end position as well. He's a beast. And look, number 2 or number 1, everybody knows that Nick Bosa is absolutely fucking fantastic.
100%. I don't think, and this is, I guess, I'm kind of jumping in the same boat as you. I had 2 other guys at number 1 before I had Nick Bosa. So I guess I kind of just revealed my number 1, but I do agree with you. I don't think it's that clear as you made it out to be whenever I texted you earlier this week. I feel like there's other guys that could potentially be number 1 here. But anyway, aside from that, we'll get to that in a second. But for my number 2, this is where I had Myles Garrett. Tied for 2nd in sacks with 16. He had 37 solo tackles, 2 forced fumbles. He had the best pass rush grade in the league for the 2nd year in a row. Ridiculous. He also is 2nd best in WAR, right behind Max Crosby. So Myles Garrett, as you already kind of mentioned, he's an absolute dog. He made my number 2.
All right. Number 1 is Micah Parsons to me. In my mind, it's Micah Parsons. Obviously, he didn't win the Defensive Player of the Year, but as an off-ball linebacker, as opposed to a defensive end, he has to do a little bit more. His job entails a little bit more than what than what Nick Bosa does day in day out. 13 and a half sacks. Four stuffs isn't great. I'd like to see him more involved in the running game, but he's just ridiculous. You talked about it. His size, he's so ridiculous. It's crazy. Like he's played over 75% of his snaps on the defensive line, but he can play off the line if you need him to. He's that physical, he's that athletic that he's capable. But where I see Parsons at one is by watching all of these guys play. I know exactly what Micah Parsons is doing every time I watch him play a snap. He's the only person that I want to look at on the field when he's playing.
I like it. I love that take. And actually, now that you've revealed that it's Micah Parsons, I will tell you that Micah Parsons was my number one for a short time while I was making this list. So I don't think it's far out of the realm for him to be number one at all. So I like that take a lot. My number one was I went the obvious boring route here. Nick Bosa, 18 and a half sacks, had him best in the NFL. If you do the math, that's actually averaging more than a sack a game. That's stupid. Stupid good. 41 solo tackles, which is also pretty high. 2 forced fumbles. He led the league in total pressures, which you mentioned, I believe. Also had a top 5 run defense grade. And the thing with Nick Bosa, man, it's just so amazing when he's healthy because amazing things happen. I love watching Nick Bosa, log in a full healthy season because he becomes Defensive Player of the Year. And also, Grayson, I just wanted to mention, in the same sentence as Nick Bosa, that next season, Javon Hargrave will join him on that defensive line. So can't wait to watch the 49ers defense, not give up a field goal next season.
Yeah, they're going to be absolutely ridiculous. Just think about 3 players on that team where it's just you have Joey Bosa as a quarterback. You have Joey Bosa to your right. You have Javon Hargrave right in front of you, and then behind Javon Hargrave is Fred Warner.
It's like a fantasy football team, dude.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Like I can't even swing this in an NFL franchise.
No, you can't. And on top of that, is their secondary. They still got guys like oh my gosh, help me with his name. The guy who trained with Troy. No, the dude who trained with Troy.
Talanoa Hufanga.
Talanoa Hufanga. Got it. I mean, this defense is just going to be all around ridiculous. They have the defensive linemen, they have the linebackers, they have the secondary. Good luck. Just good luck.
Yeah, good luck to anybody that plays the 49ers next year. Oh. All right. Well, that's going to do it for the list. Now let me be an obnoxious baseball fan. We're going to give our MLB awards prediction. So like I said at the beginning, we're doing both leagues, MVP, Cy Young, Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year, Hank Aaron Award, and the Reliever of the Year awards. Let's start off with the NL MVP. Luke, I'm going to let you go first with this one because I'm probably going to go on a little while.
Oh, that's fine. I love to listen to you. And I also kind of hope, selfishly that my picks fire you up.
Okay.
Because you know that, I am a baseball fan, not like you though. So I'm hoping that kind of like my takes that probably don't have as much value as yours. I hope you still like my takes though.
I'm sure I will.
I'm looking for your approval here. NL MVP. I'm going to go with a guy who came back last season from an injury the season before, I believe. I feel like this guy, he's going to be a lot healthier this season. I went with Ronald Acuna as my NL MVP.
Love it.
And like I said, he's going to be completely healthy. There's really no excuse for him not to be NL MVP. He's got the talent defensively and offensively. He's on a team that's going to be super talented for a while. And yeah, I like Ronald Acuna here for my NL MVP.
Well, I'm glad you said that, sir, because I do as well. Look, this is the only time I let myself be biased. Look, I'm a flawed person. I'll admit I'm not perfect. I can't be unbiased here. Ronald Acuna Jr. is winning the MVP. And so he didn't play enough games last year because of the ACL. He's healthy now. He stayed active. He played the Winter League in Venezuela, spring training, World Baseball Classic. He was playing in a spring training game today. Now he is ready. This is the year he goes 40-40. I'm certain of that.
Yep.
Last season, in only 119 games, many of those he was still dealing with this injury, still put up 15 homers and 29 stolen bases. Look, across the board, the numbers were down. Of course, I attribute that to being out of the game, but he didn't put up a great WAR, but once again, tainted by the games played. It's hard to compare to his past seasons because the two were affected by injury. 2020 wasn't exactly, 2020 was 2020, shortened season, all that bullshit. 2019, a fantastic year, very hard to compare to. And then, of course, you can't really compare to a rookie year, especially once he's at this point in his career. But let's talk about some percentiles from last year. 98th percentile in max exit velocity, 93rd percentile in hard hit percentage, 95th percentile in expected, okay, I'll say it how it should be, xWOBA, which is expected weighted on-base average, which is formulated using exit velocity, launch angle, and on certain types of batted balls, sprint speed, just to give you the preface there, Luke. 92nd percentile in expected slugging, and my favorite, 100th percentile in arm strength in the field.
It is totally not a biased thing to say that Ronald Acuna could be MVP. It just isn't.
I'm glad because I have even more.
Here we go.
All right, Fangraphs, which is who I use all of my projections for. Fangraphs projects him to play 147 games. I think that's pretty accurate. Athletes like Ronald Acuna, they're going to get hurt. It just happens, but the projections are in his favor. He's already slated for 30 home runs, 35 stolen bases. They've got him projected for a career best K percentage at 23.1%. His RBI projection at 81. I think that one's wildly low, but most likely due to him hitting leadoff in this lineup. His FWAR, which is this Fangraphs WAR, is projected at 5.6. That'd be good for 11th amongst hitters last season, but I think the walk rate will rise from last year. It was under 10% last year. I think 15% is more realistic for him. I think the OPS is going to push towards 1,000, unlike what Fangraphs has him projected at an 866. I think Acuna being the true leader of this team next season is going to be huge. I think Olsen and Riley certainly have a shot to be on his tail, as well as Michael Harris, not far behind him, but with a Rookie of the Year, 2 Silver Sluggers, and a World Series ring, an MVP would look real good in his trophy case.
It sure would. And with his age, if he stays healthy, I could see many more to come easily for this dude. One of my favorite. Actually, I'll just go ahead and say it. He is my favorite non-Yankee. 100%. None. There isn't a player that even comes close.
I'm glad.
I love this guy. AL MVP, or do you got more?
No, you're all good.
So I went again with another young guy. I think it's the sophomore year for Julio Rodriguez, Grayson. He is my AL MVP.
Okay, so I'm a big believer in the sophomore slump. So it's very hard for me to say the guys in their second year are going to do fantastic stuff. I certainly think Julio Rodriguez is capable of it. I went a different route.
Let's hear it.
I went with Vlad Guerrero Jr.
That was another one that he was like in my top 3 when I was thinking of this list.
Yeah, the guy's fantastic. But let's look at last season first. So kind of a statistical down year. 96th percentile in average exit velo, 99th in max exit velo, 94th in hard hit percentage, 90th in expected batting average, 243 batted balls last year with an exit velocity greater than or equal to 100 miles per hour. That's ridiculous. Wow. So, like I said, last season was a statistical down year. So in one less game played, but a very similar amount of plate appearances, Vlad recorded 13 less hits, 16 less home runs, 33 less runs, 14 less RBIs, and 28 less walks. And as much as I hate to say anything about batting average. His batting average went down from a 311 in 2021 to a 274 in 2022. I think it's time for a turnaround, and the Fangraphs projections like that too. Though they haven't projected less than his usual 160 games played, they've got him projected at 147, which is kind of the standard for their projections. They've still got him for 35 home runs, an on base percentage of 364, slugging of 533, and an OPS of 897. A WRC plus for Luke. WRC plus is runs per plate appearance, scaled where 100 is the average, and that's league and park adjusted, and that's based on his weighted on base average.
Okay.
So his WRC plus is projected at a 154 and a projected WAR of 4.6. WAR projections are never as high as they typically are, but I think the WAR could be higher. I think he'll probably be closer into the 40s in home runs. I say 43, probably closer to a 380 on base percentage and an OPS closer to about 920. I think the Ks get lower. I think the walks go higher, and we see a little bit more of that 2021 version of Vlad that was just barely beat out by Ohtani in the MVP voting.
I love that take because Vlad, he's just such a he's such a young kid who is taking the league by storm. I would love to see him be an AL MVP. That'd be pretty cool to see. All right, you ready for my NL Cy Young?
I sure am.
I kind of thinking about it now. I'm not too sure how I feel about this one, but I feel like it would be really cool if Max Scherzer could do it with the Mets.
I like it. I think that it's certainly possible, but I think we do have to take into account that he's turning 39 this year, and
Yes.
age is certainly a thing for guys that throw hard and are very much about like the fastball is certainly his best pitch. It's going to affect him no matter what. I certainly think he's capable of it. Max Scherzer is an absolute beast, but
Yeah.
I went
Justin
I
Verlander
went
did
for
it
a younger
at an old
way.
age.
I'll be honest. I went for a younger direction.
Okay, I did want to bring up though, Verlander has done it at an old age before. Didn't he win it last year in the AL?
Yes, but I feel like with Verlander, he's definitely not throwing as hard as he used to. He's worked more on the technical side of his game, and that's where those adjustments have been huge. I don't know if Scherzer has done that quite yet.
Gotcha. Well, I wanna hear your NL Cy Young, Mr.
All right.
Grayson.
So look, I'm not going to fall for the repeat winner because that doesn't happen very often with Sandy Alcantara. I'm not going to go biased with Fried or Strider. I think that Zach Gallen of the Diamondbacks is going to win the NL Cy Young. So the last 3 years, the NL Cy Young winner has been a first-time winner and somebody that's been solid, but not really the best pitcher in the league. So that being the Mickey Mouse Cy Young for Trevor Bauer, Corbin Burns in 2021, and then Sandy Alcantara last year. Gallen fits this mold. He's been pretty good for the D-backs throughout his career. Outside of his brutal 2021, Gallen had not had an ERA over 2.9. Last year being his best at a 2.54.
Wow.
What makes it better is that last season, he had his lowest ERA. He had his highest starts at 31, his highest innings pitched at 184, and his first sub 1 WHIP season. WHIP is walks and hits per inning pitched at 0.91. So he's averaging less than one player on base per innings pitched. He almost hit 200 strikeouts at 192, and a pretty good, Luke, just listen for this one a second, ex-Wobacon.
Jesus
All right,
Christ.
that is XWOBACON. That is expected weighted on-base average on contact, which means it's just his expected weighted on-base average, but it excludes walks and hit by pitch.
Baseball is just such a weird sport, man.
But
I love it though. I as a sports fan and as a fan of like statistics and stuff, I love the culture of baseball in the sense that it is so like to the finest details, and I think that's so cool. And I wish other sports were like it.
yeah, I think that just boils down to the fact that all of the outcomes are so certain, and it allows for so many statistics to be made out of it.
For sure, and I think it's great.
So yeah, he had a pretty good ex-Wobacon at 340, a career low walk rate at 6.6%, and a career best FIP fielder independent pitching at 3.05. The projections do not favor him, but that is common for pitchers. Of course, they're not going to think he's going to do fantastic because, he's going in, week out throwing. But I think an ERA closer to 2.2 and a K rate closer to 28 or 29% rather than his 27% from last year would be enough for him to improve those numbers and really differentiate himself. So with 4 seasons to his name, it is time to give Zach Gallen his flowers. He's winning a Cy Young.
I love it. I love it. My AL Cy Young, this is where I have Mr. Shohei. But personally, Grayson, I would like to see you Darvish win it. But my prediction is Shohei, though.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's certainly the possibility that he wins it. Yu Darvish plays in the NL, so.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
But yes, Shohei certainly has a shot. I think he's the favorite right now, or at least one of them. But I think that with Verlander leaving the AL for the first time, certainly opens the door for a few guys to show out. I like Shohei for it. I like Rodon, but your first year in a Yankees uniform is not favorable. Dylan Cease has a shot, but I haven't really liked what I've seen from him in spring training. So I think that this is the year that Tyler Glasnow comes back and dominates. He's only pitched 2 games since the Tommy John surgery, which that Tommy John surgery, the UCL injury was it looked like resulted from the substance ban, which he came out in a press conference the day that they banned it and said that he used sunscreen and rosin to get a better grip on the baseball, which 2 things that you just naturally use in baseball. Kind of weird that he's not allowed to do it, but now he's had time to make the adjustments, work on mechanics to, get back to where he was, but without the substances. The guy's a flamethrower. 94th percentile in fastball velo in 2021, but he complemented that with a 96th percentile in curve spin, 97th percentile in strikeout rate, and a 98th percentile in whiff rate. So he throws hard, he gets strikeouts, he's capable of having a low ERA, and he can certainly limit the base runners. So what things kind of limit him from the Cy Young? It's really just the hard hits. He throws so damn hard that it's inevitable that he's going to give up hard hits and home runs. That's really the only problem. So if he can continue to keep that whiff rate up, but kind of limit the amount of hard hit balls he's giving up, he's going to absolutely kill it this season.
I love that take. He is a guy that even though he plays in my division, I hated to hear him get hurt. Absolutely hated to hear him get hurt. So it would be really cool to see him kind of bounce back and win a Cy Young. That'd be awesome. Rookie of the year, Grayson. Rookie of the year. You ready?
Yeah.
I went with Corbin Carroll of the D-backs in the NL. I think, what is he? He's a center fielder, correct?
Yes.
And I think from what I looked up, that he would probably be the guy in Arizona. I don't know if there's a center field, or they have one of the Martes, right?
Yeah, they have Ketel Marte, but I believe he's moved back into second base.
Okay, well, that opens the door up for Corbin Carroll, and I just feel like with the way that the D-backs are set up right now, he's in a good position to have a good season as a young player. And so I went with Corbin Carroll.
Well, I did too. I was very close to saying Jared Schuster of the Braves, but I kept myself limited on my bias. So I went with Corbin Carroll, speedy center fielder. And look, I know it's crazy. I have 2 Diamondbacks taking home end of the season awards, but Corbin Carroll looks like the real deal. He's already got MLB experience. He played 32 games last season, 115 plate appearances, unmatched speed in center field and on the bases. 100th percentile last season in the MLB for sprint speed.
Wow.
He's not really a power hitter, but he's capable of hitting home runs. He had 4 last season. Throw that with his 2 triples in only 32 games, 9 doubles. That accounts for 15 of his 27 hits last season.
Wow.
So Corbin Carroll is going to be an infielder's nightmare because they're going to have to really rush to throw the ball, and he's a hitter's nightmare when he's playing in the outfield. Honestly, the league is just fucked if this guy reaches his potential.
I like that take. My AL Rookie of the Year. This is a guy who I've been paying a little bit of attention to in spring training. I almost said spring break. That's something else. Uh, my AL Rookie of the Year, Grayson, is Anthony Volpe. I think he's a shortstop for the Yankees. I have absolutely loved how this guy's played in spring training. He definitely deserves a lot of playing time as a Yankees infielder. So yeah, I went with Anthony Volpe. I think he's in a good spot to do well.
Well, look at us. We've got the same view on the youth because I took Anthony
Wow.
Volpe as well.
Okay.
So this was a hard one for me because I'm absolutely obsessed with Gunnar Henderson. I think he's a fantastic prospect as well as Grayson Rodriguez. But from what I've seen from Grayson Rodriguez already in the majors, it doesn't look good to start. So it's also hard for pitchers to win it. But I like Anthony Volpe. He's yet to play an MLB regular season game, but I see the potential. I'd like to see a little bit higher average and on base percentage, but he definitely has potential. Letting him learn from MLB coaches and players is going to do wonders for him. He can work on mechanics, he can work on his discipline at the plate, and his game will just improve tenfold if he can do well with that. He makes contact with a lot of pitches that are outside of the zone, which is a bit of a problem, and it often does not work in his favor. So if you work on those few things and accept that you're not going to be the featured player in this Yankees lineup, obviously, you're going to have to deal with the New York Yankees fans and the media, but if he can manage that, he can certainly take home the AL Rookie of the Year.
I love it. I love it. My NL Manager of the Year. I'm going to go with Skip Schumacher. He is the Miami Marlins manager of next season. I just think, look, he is in a unique position, kind of like the guy who I picked as my AL Manager of the Year. Both of these guys have super young teams that have a lot of potential, and I feel like Skip Schumacher is the kind of guy that he's gonna get a lot out of a lineup. He's gonna get reactions. He's gonna be able to make players mad and make that translate to good things on the field. Right? He's gonna make them into dogs, kind of like Coach Dabble of the New York Giants. Just an absolute unbeatable mentality kind of coach. One that'll instill that mentality. So I went with Skip of the
I,
Marlins.
I like that. So this one's hard for me picking a manager of the year because a lot of times it's like a team that hasn't done well or a new coach doing really well. So I decided I'm just going to fully commit to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I went with Tori Lavolo. I think the Diamondbacks have a great chance to make the playoffs. I know they play in a really tough division, but I like them to look at like the 85 win range. I think they're going to be somewhere around there. They've got a pretty solid pitching staff. They've got a ton of good young talent. They brought in some talent in free agency. I really like what they've got going on in Arizona. They might not come in, second, definitely not first in that division with the Padres and Dodgers and Giants, but I do think that the Diamondbacks will definitely surprise some people this year.
I like that take. I like that take. My AL Manager of the Year. I'm going to go with Brandon Hyde of the Baltimore Orioles, and it's just simple. Baltimore last year, I mean, it looked like they were going to squeeze into the wild card. I mean, they picked up some speed with their young lineup last year. And I just think with a full season ahead of them, if they can instill the kind of play that they were playing like when they were hot at the end of last season, I think Brandon Hyde is definitely going to be the one to take all the credit for that. I think he should be AL Manager of the Year.
Love it. And then for my AL Manager of the Year, look, if last year was not enough for the Mariners, manager Scott Service, he's got to be it this year. The Mariners are so good. They continue to get better, but they're kind of overshadowed in the division by the Astros. I think this year the race will be much closer in that division. I think Scott Service is going to take it home.
I like it. I like it. You ready
All
to
right.
move on to the Hank Aaron Award?
Yes. So these are just the best hitters. That's the way this one works. So, all the hitting statistics only, no defense.
Gotcha. I maybe I kind of went out there for this one. This guy is coming off of a monster World Baseball Classic offensively, and maybe this is a stretch, Grayson. I really want your take on my take here. I'm going to go with Trey Turner as my NL Hank Aaron Award winner.
I think there's 100% a chance that he does that. He definitely gets great statistics. Um, he's got the speed, power, extra base hit ability, ridiculous hitter in general. I think he certainly has the potential to win it. Great pick there.
I like it. I like it. Who'd you have?
I've got Juan Soto because he's a high on base percentage guy, high slugging. He doesn't strike out, walks a ton, and any award the defense doesn't matter is always within Soto's reach.
Yeah. I can't tell if that's a roast or a compliment.
It's a bit of a roast, but
Yeah,
I will say he's a fantastic hitter.
for sure. Man, he gets all those walks because of that shuffle, man. Dude, if I was a pitcher and I saw him shuffling like that, I'm throwing at his chest.
If I was a pitcher in the MLB facing Juan Soto, I'd just quit. I wouldn't play anymore. It would not be worth the embarrassment.
Is he taking you 460?
Yeah, maybe more. Actually, I don't even think I wouldn't throw hard enough for him to even get it to go that far.
Okay. Well, anyway, another guy who's had an awesome World Baseball Classic for Team USA. For my AL Hank Aaron Award winner, I'm going to go with Mike Trout.
Yeah, solid pick there. Love it. He's always a shoo-in for these kind of awards.
For sure.
I went for Vlad. I think that if he has an MVP season, it's going to be because he's the best hitter in the American League. And that's just kind of how it goes a lot. Sometimes the MVP wins both, sometimes they don't. But when it comes down to it, Vlad is an offensive player. If he wins it, or if he wins the MVP, he's certainly taking home the Hank Aaron Award.
Okay.
All right, relievers of the year.
So, NL reliever of the year. I went with Devin Williams. He was the guy, I think he replaced Josh Hader. Correct?
Yeah, so I don't know if he's officially their closer, but he's certainly a relief pitcher for them.
Well, I know.
Either
like
way,
last
he's
season,
going to be fantastic.
He ended up with 19 saves last season. So
Okay,
I just
so
kind
yeah.
of assumed that he was the guy.
Yeah, most likely.
And I think with a full season ahead of him, with the Brew Crew, I absolutely love that nickname, by the way. The Brew Crew's fucking awesome. Devin Williams is going to be great as kind of their starting closer. I feel like day one in the MLB. So
yeah, he's a fantastic pitcher. I went for a guy who kind of burst onto the scene last year. It's Camilo Doval of the Giants. The guy is
I love that take.
Fantastic in relief. Great closer. He's got velocity. He's got some great off speeds, a fantastic slider. The guy is just ridiculous across the board, a dominant pitcher. I think over this full season, cemented as the closer for the Giants, he's gonna show out and really show off why he was the best reliever of the year.
Camilo Doval, what a pitcher he's gonna be. He's like a kid too, isn't he? Isn't he going to be like 21 or 20 going into next season or something crazy?
Yeah, he's definitely young. I'm going to look up his age. You can go ahead and say your AL pick.
All right. My AL reliever of the year next year. I actually think this one's kind of written in the stars. I went with Emmanuel Clase of the Guardians. I hope that's how you say his last name. Awesome. Yep. Yeah, the dude had a pretty high amount of saves last season. And I just think it'll continue for him, and he'll probably win this award.
Yeah, that would be a back-to-back for Emmanuel Clase.
Awesome.
That would actually be 2 straight back-to-back winners of the American League Reliever of the Year, because Liam Hendriks took it home 2 years in a row, once with the A's, once with the White Sox, and now, if Clase wins it, that would be huge. I went a different route. I went for Jordan Romano with the Blue Jays. Fantastic closer. He's not okay, he's got velocity, don't get me wrong, but he is very technical. He's very good with his sequences. When I watch Jordan Romano pitch, it's very technical. It's very much like every different guy is going to get a different thing. There's no pattern in his pitching, which is huge for a closing pitcher. He's got, the speed up and in, and then he'll come outside with the slider. Then he'll hit one on your toes, come back up high with the fastball. Like, his mix is great, and he just does it at such an elite level. and I think the Blue Jays are just going to be a good team next year, that Jordan Romano is going to look real good. Also, Camilo Doval is 25.
Dang, I thought he was a lot younger than that. But anyway, that's still pretty young. He's a crazy pitcher, and I like kind of going back to your take on him. I like how you mentioned the slider because in the show, I did a Yankees franchise and I traded for Camilo Doval. His slider, it's unbeatable. I literally feel it feels like it has like 34 feet of movement. It
he
just looks
definitely he
insane.
has like some ridiculous numbers for his horizontal movement on the slider.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, that does it. We actually went through that much quicker than I thought we would.
Yeah.
I think we both
Awesome.
made some great picks.
I do too. I wish I just wish I knew more about baseball. I need to start looking more into it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Instead
Look,
of
if you're ever watching a baseball game throughout this season that's coming up, go on your phone, go to Baseball Savant. It's the MLB's like database of stats. You can watch it while you're watching the game, and it'll live update, and it shows you exit velocities, pitch velocities, all sorts of stuff, launch angle for every single time somebody hits the ball in play,
wow.
tons of stuff there. But I use it to look up players and see all these stats. So like that's where I was finding all the percentiles.
Okay. I
So
like that.
Baseball Savant and then Fangraphs, and then of course you can always look at Baseball Reference um, for just your basic statistics. They also have advanced stats.
Awesome, awesome.
All right. Well, let's get into some international soccer. We've got some Euro qualifiers going on this weekend, a couple of international friendlies as well. But England Italy happened just a couple of hours ago. England takes it 2-1 over Italy. England's goals coming from Declan Rice in the 13th and Kane in the 44th on a penalty. And then Retegui, I believe is how you say that, scored in the 56th minute for Italy. A pretty solid match here. Italy tried to fight back in the second half. I didn't get to see too much of this match, but Declan Rice played really well in this match, which is kind of surprising. He hasn't really played all that well this season in the Prem, but obviously England just had it rolling, and this was a pretty good matchup. The world ranked number 5 in England going up against the world ranked number 8 with Italy.
I like it. If I were to first look at this lineup without looking at who scored, I would have been kind of upset that Harry Kane got played instead of Ivan Toney from Brentford. I think is who Ivan Toney plays for. Just with Harry Kane's form and how he's played and everything, I get that he's England's captain, but I would have liked to see Toney play. But hey, Harry Kane, I think, got on the board with a penalty kick, right?
Yes.
So, still a good pick there, I guess, from Southgate, the manager. Um, Luke Shaw with the red card. Wanted to highlight that. He got yellow carded for time wasting in the 78th minute, and then 2 minutes later committed a foul and then got himself a red card. So not looking good, too good for Luke Shaw there. But hey, all around great game from England, and it just kind of makes me think that Italy just may not have the squad to compete, on a world level.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I looked at the FIFA rankings and saw that Italy was ranked number 8 in the world because like they didn't even make the World Cup. Like there's multiple teams, I'd say that in my mind, Portugal, Spain, Morocco, even Germany, maybe the US is better than Italy right now. But, the Italian squad has talent. I just don't think it works all that well in the way that they set it up.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely think Sandro Tonali. Of course, he did get subbed in. I would have liked to have seen him start over Jorginho personally. I think Jorginho's time is kind of coming to an end. He's had some flashes here and there with Arsenal, obviously coming from Chelsea, but Tonali has been a very consistent player for AC Milan. Very good player in the Champions League as well for AC Milan. This was kind of I don't know. It was just it's like kind of going back to what I said earlier. Just really interesting to see how the Italians lined up because they're kind of back to not being as stacked of a team as you would expect them to be.
Yeah, obviously the defense is the main spot there. We're missing, Chiellini. Um, I'm absolutely blanking on the guy that was always right next to him.
Benucci.
Yes, Leonardo Bonucci. We're missing them, and it's kind of surprising to see this formation in general because you have Pellegrini and Berardi more playing like a left and right attacking mid role, not as much on the wing, but Verratti and Barella kind of replacing them out wide. So they played it weird. I didn't like the tactics here from Roberto Mancini's squad, but England met it perfectly. I really like this England lineup. I definitely think there's some improvements they can make. Like you said, Ivan Toney at striker is probably a more consistent option than Harry Kane in my opinion.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I really like this English squad. They work out very well. Saka and Grealish on the wing, Bellingham in the center, kind of alone in that attacking role with Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips, typically playing a little bit deeper, and then obviously a solid defense with the attacking prowess of Luke Shaw and Kyle Walker. It works out very well for this English squad.
Yeah, it does. Personally, though, I think you could have maybe even played Reece James instead of Kyle Walker, Aaron Ramsdale instead of Pickford, um, probably James Madison instead of Calvin Phillips, too. James Madison has been known to play a center mid role, even Connor Gallagher over Calvin Phillips as well, too. But hey, England still got the dub, and it's kind of just a testament to their depth. Notice how I didn't say Ben Chilwell should start. Very good player, but Luke Shaw is just that much better. This England team, I could see, maybe not on a World Cup level, Grayson, but definitely as a Euro team, I could see them going all the way.
Yeah, we'll see. They love to just not make it all the way. So
They do.
they're real good at doing that. So, we'll just have to see. England is so like volatile with their lineups where, you know, we think of England as like this world powerhouse in soccer, but when you think of the world class players, a lot of them don't play for England. Like they're just not English players, and that's what kills them. Look, all like as many good players can play in the Premier League, and they can brag about it all they want. But on the international stage, they don't produce the same level of talent as other countries, even just in Europe.
Yeah, they have England have lacked for a very long time. Of course, we're kind of seeing a different England than what we saw in 2010 World Cup and 2014 World Cup. And of course, Grayson, on the 2010 team, you had a midfield of Lampard. I think Paul Scholes was still playing at that time, and Steven Gerrard. A defense of Rio Ferdinand, John Terry, Joe Hart in goal, and I don't even think they made it out of the group stage. So, England have always kind of been like this enigma where either they have really good players and don't perform, or a lot of their world class players have now retired and they still kind of like just hover around mediocrity. So I would personally like to see England do a lot better in their world tournaments. I like a lot of their players, but yeah, just kind of something interesting I wanted to bring up there.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Is Sterling out still, or is he active and just didn't make the squad?
Raheem Sterling's playing for Chelsea,
Okay,
so
so
I
yeah,
don't
he
know
he
what's
just
going on
didn't
there.
get selected here. I think he's a pretty big improvement in my mind over Grealish on the wing. I don't think Grealish just doesn't have the speed for me to work well in this England lineup as a winger.
Yeah, I think personally, to bounce off of you, I think you let Phil Foden start
Yes.
and replace Grealish with Sterling and have Sterling as kind of your super sub.
Yeah, I would like Phil Foden to come in. First of all, came in the 69th, subbed out in the 81st. So that's
Yeah,
interesting there, but I just I don't really get it here. I feel like Foden should have started at left wing. He's, in my opinion, more skillful, a little bit faster. A, he's a little bit better at cutting in as well. Grealish does not cut in very well. He can play outside fine, but I'd much rather have Foden over Grealish at left wing.
I would too. Yeah, much more of a creative player there. But in Euro qualifiers, and I've known international teams to do this, they'll never play what their starting lineup should look like. It's always kind of, even in the qualification stage, always kind of rotating your players out and stuff like that. So who knows? This may not be the England team that we'll see, once it comes Euro time. But I don't know. There are definitely some changes I would have made for sure.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you got to say about that one?
No, I think
All
we can
right.
move on.
Well, let's talk a little bit about France versus Netherlands. This one's happening on Friday, 3:45 p.m. I believe that's Eastern time. Um, that certainly could be wrong, but France versus Netherlands, number 3 in the world versus number 6 in the world, respectively. Two fantastic teams. I'm not sure if you have like a probable lineup here, but the one that I'm
I actually do.
seeing. Okay, so the one that
Mhm.
I'm seeing right now has Weghorst as striker. I don't
Yep.
like that. I'm
I don't like it
personally.
either. It's something that I think it's the one thing that holds the Dutch back from being a team that I would say could make the World Cup final. Is Weghorst is okay, right? He's played amazing for Manchester United. Of course, no goals really, but he still played well. He only plays well, Grayson, as that center forward because he has players that can score around him, players that he can not only pass to set up, but also kind of move, a center back away to create space for another player. They do have Mullen and Memphis Depay here as my probable lineup. Those are not going to be the players that can compensate for the goals that Weghorst can't get, in my opinion.
Yeah, so how I would have rather seen it lined up, I think Weghorst should be on the bench. I think Depay should probably play at striker, and
Yep.
then have Gakpo on the wing, and then mine has Xavi Simmons on the left wing, which I
Oh,
like.
that's another good one. Yeah, he's that youngster from PSV.
Yes.
I definitely like Xavi Simmons on the bench. At least he needs to be on the team 100%. But I would actually start Mullen over him, I think.
All right. Yeah, I prefer Mullen in the striker role. So even if you just take out Weghorst, put Mullen in at striker, I would like that as well.
Yeah, for sure. But
I
the
feel
rest of the
like
lineup,
Cody Gakpo should be playing though.
oh, 100%. A million percent. He has proven that he can do it in the Prem. And if you can do it in the Prem, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, like you were saying, I like the rest of this lineup. It looks great.
yeah. Obviously, the Dutch are going to be strong defensively. Nathan Ake with Virgil van Dijk. That's a pair that highly underrated in international soccer, I would say. Cleeson has always been a solid goalie for the Dutch. Really like him too. Daily Blind, another player that's always been there. Um, Timber at right back. I feel like you could probably replace him there. Of course, Bergwijn is hurt. Actually, no, he's their winger. Crap, who am
Dumfries,
I?
Denzel Dumfries.
Dumfries is who I'm thinking of. He's an insane fullback. Definitely a underrated fullback amongst other fullbacks in the world. I like this Dutch team, but like we just talked about earlier, is Weghorst is the one thing holding this team back.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I feel like they have enough like attacking support in their midfield that they don't need Weghorst to kind of play back a little bit and play make. They need a striker that can score goals.
Exactly, exactly. And on the French side, my possible lineup definitely leaves out some center backs. I don't have Laporte on here. I have
Well, he's playing for
Kouyate.
Spain now.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so all right. So we have oh my gosh, what's that guy's name? It starts with the U. I'm looking at it, but I don't even want to try to pronounce it. Umpianaco?
I think it's Upamecano. Upamecano.
Upamecano. Anyway, solid player for Leipzig, I think is his club. He'll definitely be going somewhere else in the world for a huge transfer fee, I think.
He's with Bayern now. He moved from Leipzig in the offseason.
There you go. So it already happened. Really solid French defender there. You have Kouyate, who is just like the other guy we just mentioned, another solid center back. Jules Koundé at right back, debatable. I think he could play a center back, but I mean, if you're already this loaded, you have to have Koundé in this lineup somewhere. So I like him at right back. And the last thing that I'll want to talk about, and then I'll turn it over to you, Teo Hernandez at left back. This dude has been stupid good for AC Milan, and it's another one of those things, man. That just this French team, it's a team that you could only dream of, really.
Yeah, I honestly think that this French team could prosper more with a five at the back. I feel like having Teo Hernandez play the wing back and then pushing Kunde into the back three, and then having somebody like Benjamin Pavard on the right, I think that would maybe bode well better. But in the midfield, though, I've got Rabiot, Griezmann, and Chouameni, which a perfect midfield. Obviously, Griezmann is going to be playing up a little bit higher than Rabiot and Chouameni, but Mbappe and Coman on the wing, and then Giroud at striker. This lineup is certainly, it at least looks like they're going to dominate Netherlands.
I agree. That midfield man, Chouameni, remember the name. I said it with Camavinga, who is another player that is on here that'll be on the bench. He's a ridiculous player in his own right. But Chouameni, just remember the name, Grayson. I mean, he's already playing at Real Madrid, just like Camavinga, another French guy. He's going to be insane. And Griezmann, I feel like, has really kind of revived his career as a cam. So I like him at a cam here, which is what I have him as. Olivier Giroud at striker. He's a guy that, he flies under a lot of people's radar. He's gotten up there in age. He's bounced around with teams. He was scoring whenever he moved to Chelsea. He's still scoring now that he's at AC Milan. Age just seems, just to be a number for this guy. He can do it anywhere. And Coman's always a solid option. And then you have Mbappe, who I guess is like an average player.
So. Yeah, whatever. Who even knows who that guy is? But
I don't know who he is.
I love what you were saying about Olivier Giroud, because look, for most of the strikers in the world that kind of tip off once they get up into the older ages, it's because they rely on their speed. Olivier Giroud, another great example is Zlatan. Zlatan has been dominant into like his 40s, and Olivier Giroud does that so well. It's never been about speed with him. It's about simply goal scoring ability in the box.
And that's, sometimes all you need to do. If you have a team like France do around Olivier Giroud, all Giroud has to do is just kind of like play with his brain, honestly. And I feel like that's what he's best at. He's good at kind of drifting away from players. He's obviously good at finishing. And kind of just, what I said with my first point, his positioning is world class, which is why he's been able to be so good at his age. And, not to mention his aerial threat ability as well. Olivier Giroud is still at a point, in my opinion, where he can come off the bench and play anywhere in the entire world if he wants to.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And let me get a score prediction out of you.
Ooh. I think this Dutch defense will definitely hold up. Man, I'm gonna go 1-1. I'm gonna go bold. I think the Dutch defense will hold the French.
All right, I'm gonna go 2-1 France. I think Mbappe and Giroud are good for one.
All right, I like it.
All right, let's talk about Morocco versus Brazil. It's not a huge deal here, but at the moment, Brazil is number 1 in FIFA's world rankings. Morocco coming in at 11. Correct me if I'm wrong. Morocco beat Brazil in the knockout stages of the World Cup.
I think they did.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember all that far back. I don't have any kind of probable lineup here, but big thing here, Achraf Hakimi is out for this match. But for Brazil, Thiago Silva's out, Richarlison's out, Neymar's out, Marquinhos is out, Alexandro, and then Dani Alves is also out.
Interesting.
This game it's ridiculous with how many people are out.
Yeah. And of course, like, it's just a Euro qualifier. It's not,
it's not even. It's just a friendly.
oh yeah, you're right. It wouldn't be a Euro qualifier because they aren't European teams, Luke. Good job. Yeah, but it'll just be a friendly. But the good thing about friendlies, though, especially with teams like Brazil that are playing in it, Brazil is a team that has a fuck ton of depth, right? In an international friendly, I hope we'll get to see a lot of that Brazilian depth, because I know there's some young guys in there that I've never heard of that are going to show out in this Morocco game.
Yeah, the squad obviously still has fantastic players, in defense, Eder Militao, Danilo, Gleison Bremer for Juventus, who's really bursted on this season, Alex Telles from Sevilla. Those are really the only available defenders, a bunch of them injured right now. Obviously, Ederson or Alisson is going to be in goal. In the midfield, Casemiro, who just cannot stay on the field for Man U, but most likely will be playing in this one, as well as Fabinho, Guimaraes, who I think should be in the lineup here. I think he certainly is the best out of the rest, with Fred and Lucas Paqueta as other options. I think Guimaraes definitely differentiates himself from the two.
Me too. I completely agree with that. And that's the thing with when you come and you're as a head coach of an international team, when you're having players come to you from their club teams, right? In my opinion, you got to forget about what the players have done for you in the past, right? And you play the players that are in form. Gumieres might be the kind of talent that should start on this Brazil team, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he has certainly earned that from his play at Newcastle this season.
Yeah. But like I said, you got to have these players in form. You can't just have them as what they've done in the past. You got to have them coming to you in form. So Gumieres should definitely start there. This Morocco team, though, I I hope that they can kind of stabilize themselves and really put themselves as kind of a world team to watch out for in the coming years because I'm kind of worried that this is just a golden era for them.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely have the youth coming through right now that's gonna help them out. I don't quite know how to say his name, but Bunau from Sevilla, the goalkeeper, he's been fantastic. In defense, they have a ton of young, great players. Naifag Guerd from West Ham, Nusiar Mazarawi, I believe is how you say his last name, from Bayern, a great young player as well. Then, of course, Hakimi, who is out in this one, great player. And then in the midfield, the midfield's kind of weak. Sofian Amrabat is the main player there, but a couple of other guys that are still playing in Europe and they play, on pretty good teams. But with the attack, I feel like that's where it kind of falls short to me. All they really have is Hakim Ziyech.
That is true. But Akeem Ziyech, he's that's his thing is with Ziyech is he's not the winger that'll score goals. He's the winger that even though he plays on the right, he wants to cut back onto his left and whip in crosses like David Beckham. He's not going to be the kind of guy that can just sort of like, put on his Cristiano Ronaldo game face and dribble through everybody and score, outside the box bangers, upper 90 every single time. Ziyech needs people to pass to. With Morocco, I feel like he doesn't really have that. So I feel like that's where the Moroccan team's going to struggle. But, you know, goalkeeper wise, defender wise, and midfielder wise, they're a team that can compete with the best in the world, I think.
Yeah, I certainly agree.
Score prediction. You got it.
Hmm. I just feel like the depth of Brazil is going to take over here, and I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 2-0. I just don't think Morocco has the goal scoring ability here.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3-0 Morocco. Or 3-0 Brazil, sorry. 3-0.
Yeah, let's see. Score predictions from Brazil. I think it's gonna be Vinny. I think will score one.
Yeah.
Give me Bruno. Bruno Guimaraes. I think maybe he'll get on the board. Maybe
I
outside
don't
the
really.
box.
I was going to say Bruno. I was going to say Bruno for mine. I don't think he'll get the hat trick, but he'll be one of the 3 goals, I think.
Yeah, I think he'll get one. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for some international stuff. But there is quite a lot going on in the Premier League. So Antonio Conte is just all hell is broken loose at Tottenham, and on top of it, we're coming to a close in the season. At this point, some teams have played 28 games, most being at 26 or 27. So that leaves us with 10 to 13 games left in the season. There is a lot that can happen here, but let's start with Antonio Conte. Luke, you want to give us the rundown on what he was talking about with Tottenham?
I don't even remember what he said in his press conference, but it was he came out and was really bold. Let me see if I can find it. He pretty much just like after it was they were up 3-1 against Southampton, who have been trashed this season, and they ended up losing that lead, and it ended up being a 3-3 tie. And Antonio Conte completely like just went after the board. And I don't exactly remember exactly what he said, but it's it's a really funny press conference. You'll have to go listen to it. But I think he's right. Is you have a team that is it's taking its strides, right, Grayson? But it's simply just not doing enough, in my opinion. Tottenham are on the cusp, and I think that's what's so frustrating for Tottenham fans is they're there. I mean, they just recently played in a Champions League final against Liverpool. That's huge for a team like Tottenham. They have never ever been, done that well in a Champions League before, but it's time for them to take that stride. And I feel like that's what Antonio Conte's, upset about is he feels like he was brought in to win things for the club, but the board is not on the same level that he is. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah, it seems like there's a huge, disagreement between Conte and the front office, and this comes at a time where he's being linked to Juventus. It appears that just 4 hours ago, he's returned and actually talked to the Tottenham manager or the Tottenham front office because as of 11 hours ago, Football London reported that Antonio Conte was yet to return to Tottenham. So everything was just kind of going wrong. I think he just needed to clear his head because when you come off of a draw to Southampton, like they just had, you were up 3-1. You let them score two more goals to get back in the game. And, with all of this going on, it appears that Conte and Tottenham have come to an agreement, but Juventus is still definitely, Juventus is definitely still interested in Antonio Conte. So there's a lot going on here, but I feel like Antonio Conte has done good things for Tottenham.
I think he has too. Look, he may not have won a trophy with them this year, and they may be sitting at fourth, which is kind of like what we've seen from them in the past. But I feel like with Antonio Conte, you have seen a lot more consistency as far as results come than any manager that they've had in the past. Of course, Pochettino was the manager that they went to the Champions League final with, but that was kind of like a one season wonder kind of thing. I think with what happened with Pochettino, Conte has kind of brought a more stable, good, can compete with anybody sort of Tottenham team. Tottenham would be they don't need to lose this guy, but Juventus are a team that Conte's already managed. He's won trophies with Juve. I don't know. I think Tottenham are going to have to do a lot not to lose Conte. But with what Conte has said, they might want to lose him.
Yeah, there's really no telling here because, like, what I think it was just last week, like Richarlison was losing his mind over not playing and that he's not being used enough, and Antonio Conte was pretty much just like, play better and we'll start you. So, like, Antonio Conte definitely does not hold back, but I feel like we see this a lot where in all sports, I feel like some people maybe don't say this shit in press conferences. Just hold yourself back a little bit then.
Yeah, it happens a lot in soccer, though. I mean,
It's true.
just look up Jose Mourinho press
Yeah.
conference compilation,
Holy
and
shit.
you'll find it all. But yeah, Antonio Conte, I feel like he's matching a lot of the Tottenham fans' energy here. Is in like they're just kind of like they're just stuck.
Yeah.
They're just stuck in the same spot.
And look, they have a shot at moving up in the table. And this is actually a fantastic segue. So we're going to talk about who's got a shot at winning, who's got a shot at the Champions League, some teams that maybe have a shot still to get into the Europa League, and some teams that might get sent down. Let's go ahead and just talk about where Tottenham sits. They sit at fourth, 49 points. They've already got goal differential over Manchester United. They're 1 point back at with Manchester United at 50. So they have a shot at jumping to third. I don't think they could break into the top two, though.
I don't even think they're going to break into the top three, Grayson, to be honest with you. Because Manchester United at 50 points have 2 games to play to Tottenham's 28. So I feel like Tottenham they're kind of fucked. And also Newcastle, who are in 5th place behind them only by 2 points, also have 2 games in hand towards Tottenham. So, and it's the same case with Liverpool and Brighton behind them. I feel like Tottenham, with the turmoil that they are facing with their manager and like you mentioned previously with Richarlison, I could see Tottenham kind of crashing and burning at the end of this season.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting situation. I kind of want to get your take though on the top of the table here with Arsenal and Manchester City. Right now, Arsenal with one game more, or one game played more than Manchester City at 28. They've got 69 points. They've won their last five in the Prem, and it looks like there's no stopping them right now.
I agree too. I don't think Arsenal are not going to be beaten by Manchester City.
Yeah, Manchester City with 61 points. It's going to take a lot. Obviously, look, they've won four of their last five. They've gotten points all in their last five. But, this next match that they play on April 1st, I believe, is going to be against Liverpool, where Arsenal is going to be playing Leeds. So Arsenal has a much better chance of winning. Liverpool has looked pretty good. They could definitely be looking better, especially after 2 weeks ago they played and lost a 1-0 to Bournemouth. So there's so much that can happen here, but I do want to get your take on Manchester United because they're very good. Right now they're on a bit of a two-game skid where they have not played well at all. Obviously the 7-0 loss to Liverpool is huge, but a 0-0 draw with Southampton is not good to see, especially coming to this ending part of the season. Do you see them possibly making a run at Manchester City for two?
Not a run at Manchester City for second place, but I do think Manchester United probably have the third spot locked up, only because I think Manchester United are a better team than Liverpool and Newcastle. Obviously, Liverpool did beat Manchester United 7-0, but I feel like Manchester United have a better chance of retaining the third spot than Liverpool or Newcastle do of jumping them.
All right. And then, so yeah, we already talked about Tottenham, but Newcastle at 5 with 47 points, 26 games played, like you said, even with Manchester United, they certainly have the chance to go up. And those two face off when we resume play next weekend.
I can't wait.
This is a big one for points because if Newcastle gets the win here, they're even on points. Newcastle by far has the better goal differential. They have the advantage there. So maybe I think Tottenham, so Tottenham still does play that weekend, but if Tottenham gets the win, of course they'll be in third. I don't see them staying there. Newcastle and United certainly will have a fight for third.
Yeah, Newcastle, look, you guys just got beaten in the Carabao Cup to Manchester United. And you had an amazing story to get there. Your Prem story is amazing right now. You've only lost 3 times. Of course, you've drawn 11 times, which is, that's pretty high. Newcastle, I think you kind of sit in the same boat as I do. You would hate to see Newcastle keep slipping, and of course, I think they've won their last 2.
Yes.
It looks like their 2-game slip is kind of over. But you would like to see Newcastle do well, and I think with get your revenge, on Manchester United. Be pumped up. It doesn't matter that they're a bigger team than you. You got to show out whenever you play Manchester United in this coming game, because I mean they showed you up in the Carabao Cup, and you don't want to keep slipping. So I would hate to see Newcastle season get completely blown up, but I don't know. It looks like they're kind of stabled off though.
Yeah,
Positively.
And just for the sake of mentioning these teams that technically still have a chance to get into first place, it's not likely. Being Liverpool, Brighton, Brentford, Fulham, and Chelsea are all not, and Villa are all not technically eliminated from winning the title, but it certainly looks like they won't.
Yeah, of course. All but Chelsea. I think, if you're a Villa fan, this is a good season. If you're a Fulham fan, this is a good season. If you're a Brentford fan, you've only lost 5 games. Kind of like Newcastle. You've lost a small amount, but you've drawn a huge amount. Brentford have been an amazing team. Brighton are amazing. And Liverpool, probably the worst they've been under Klopp, but still not that bad. So this is kind of my point of this is such a cool Premier League season. There are so many things that are different this year. So many, smaller teams have been better, and that's what's made it so entertaining. Is the teams like Brighton, Brentford, and Fulham and Villa.
Yeah, all 4 of those teams really coming out of nowhere. Newcastle as well being up here is crazy. Obviously, they oil money, made a ton of signings, whatever. It's still crazy to see them jump up this high. So, yeah, this certainly is a Premier League season that has huge parity in it. But like at this point right now, Arsenal would have to win out to be at 99 points in the table.
Wow.
So nobody's getting 100. We can go ahead and write that one off. But Arsenal has a chance, probably won't reach 99 points.
Yeah.
And then UCL spots are still up for grabs. We were just kind of talking about how Tottenham could fall out of the top four, Newcastle could come in. I don't really see anybody outside of the top five fighting for a Champions League spot. I don't think Liverpool's really going to make that good of a push, and I don't think that the teams after them really, excite me enough to say that they're going to jump up that far.
Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I think I could see Tottenham losing Europe completely this season.
Okay, so
That's going to be my hot take of the podcast. I think they'll fall all the way to at least sixth.
So do you think that Liverpool makes Champions League, or do you think that they just make Europa League, maybe another team, Brighton, Brentford, Fulham, or sorry, Brighton and Brentford still even on points with them?
I think Liverpool. I think Liverpool make Europa League. Newcastle make Champions League.
Okay. Yeah, and so there that Europa League spot is certainly up for grabs, but there is one team that we're not talking about for a UCL spot, and that's Chelsea. But honestly, they have the best shot from outside the top four because they're the only team outside of Man City in the Premier League that remains in the Champions League. So if they win it, they make it.
That is true. But you can't draw 2-2 to Everton if you're going to make the Champions League at this point. It's got to be all perfect from Chelsea. And as a fan of Chelsea, I don't think. I mean, the new players we brought in, Grayson, are very exciting and they're all playing well. But I don't think the team is well acquainted enough with each other. Especially, you have players that are kind of rejoining the team from being hurt for long terms. Chelsea they don't have the type of roster to go perfect the rest of the season, which I think is what they would have to do, is be nearly perfect to make Champions League.
Yeah. Would you rather, as a Chelsea fan, see them commit to the Champions League or commit to the league?
Commit to the Champions League at this point.
Yeah, I'd be in the same boat.
Yeah. Um, and I think we have a real chance. This, I don't know, the modern Chelsea team, it's a threat in the Champions League. Of course, we've drawn Real Madrid for the third time in a row. In 2021, we knocked out Real Madrid in the semifinal to go to the UCL final. I think Real Madrid knocked us out in 2022 in the quarterfinal, I believe, but it was still an amazing game. Chelsea actually won the second leg away at the Bernabeu, and it ended up being a goal difference, or no, an away goal issue that knocked Chelsea out. So this modern Chelsea team can play in the Champions League, and I feel like that should be Graham Potter's focus going forward, personally.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Do you think that any of the teams other than Liverpool outside of the top five have a shot at getting that Europa League spot?
Maybe Brighton. Maybe Brighton. I can't see Brentford, but I can see Brighton.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Look, they have the goal scoring ability. They've scored 46 goals this season, a plus 15 goal differential. That's fantastic. And there's no telling what Liverpool does from here because, look, if Brighton picks up a win over Brentford, which is obviously a big matchup here, and Liverpool falls to Man City, then we could definitely see some things getting mixed up.
I would love to see things get mixed up, honestly. I really would.
All right. Well, let's talk about the bottom half of the table because after Villa, there is a huge drop off. Villa's at 38 points. Right behind them in 12th and 13th are Crystal Palace and Wolves at 27 points. So an 11-point drop off after the 11th spot in the league. And the big thing here is that between Crystal Palace in 12th and Southampton in 20th, there's only a 4-point difference. So it's really anybody could see themselves in the championship next year.
I'm just smiling looking at this right now, Grayson, because there's no way I could make a prediction on who's going to get relegated. There zero chance because you can argue that teams like West Ham, who have been historically good in the Premier League, can end up fighting their way out of this. But also, like teams like Wolves, who kind of like West Ham, have been good and have established themselves in the Premier League for the past couple seasons. they've been kind of shit all year long. So I could see them dropping all the way down. This is, going back to it, just a really, really entertaining Premier League season.
Yeah, I think that the biggest story here right now is Leicester. Leicester most definitely has a chance of going down. And with, a couple of the players on that squad, for sure, if they go down, Vardy's gone.
Yeah, and we could say that about a lot of teams. Like Wolves has Ruben Neves. He's
Yeah.
not going to play in the damn championship,
And
nor is Keylor Navas and Nottingham Forest going to want to play in the championship.
yeah, and Felipe is not going to play there. Like tons of guys on these teams. West Ham, they're going to have to deal off Declan Rice.
Yeah, 100%.
So
100%.
a ton of very good teams. Look, Leeds, they're kind of in a good spot here. They've, won their last, drew the one before it. Everton, draw, win, draw in their last three. But teams like Crystal Palace right now, they've lost 4 straight. And they face Leicester, who's on the brink of the relegation zone. Those two could certainly switch places here. Like one win from any of these teams, and it just puts so much more pressure on the next.
Exactly. And you've had teams like Southampton who have gotten draws against Chelsea. And you just mentioned it earlier. Who was their last game against that they drew? Tottenham. I mentioned it. So
Yep.
teams like Southampton are not, maybe shouldn't be 20th, but I want to pose this question to you. This is going to make you think really hard. So looking at it right now, Grayson, we have West Ham, Bournemouth, and Southampton all dropping. Do you think that the 18th, 19th, and 20th position all 3 of those will be completely different by the time the season's over? Or do you think it'll be like one of those teams or 2 of those teams? I don't know. I think the possibility for them to be completely different is not out of the realm.
It's definitely not out of the realm, but I think Bournemouth is so fucking bad. I think they end up in 20th.
Okay.
So
do you think West Ham and Southampton crawl out then?
I think they do. Look, these are 2 clubs historically, in the Premier League. Southampton has a place in the Premier League. West Ham certainly does. I think that the 3 teams that end up going down, from the way I see it right now, I think it's going to be Bournemouth, Nottingham, and I think Leicester. I'm going to go with Leicester.
Wow. I think it'll be Palace, Bournemouth, and Forest.
All right.
Yeah, I think Palace are going to drop all the way down, which is so funny. Drop all the way down when it's
Yeah.
literally 4 points between 12th and 20th. What a season, man.
Yeah, this is absolutely crazy to even just look at, because like if you look at the top half of the table, a whole lot of wins in the last 5. You go from Palace down, there is quite a few losses, especially for teams like Palace and Leicester, who have lost 4 of their last 5.
Yeah, absolutely brutal for them.
All right. Anything else you've got to talk about with the Premier League?
I think we can move on, man.
All right. Well, let's hit Do You Remember, and then we'll get out of here. Luke, I want to hear yours first because you kind of hyped it up a little bit.
All right. This is an interesting stat from a Do You Remember, but it's awesome nonetheless. So on May 13th, 2012, Grayson, do you remember what happened on that day in the world of the Premier League?
You said May 12th.
May 13th, 2012.
2012.
So I'll help you out before you make your prediction. We're talking like very
final game of the season.
Literally final game of the season, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe that it's a team getting out of relegation.
It is not.
Fuck. Okay.
I'm going to give you the commentator. Right?
I got an idea now. Okay, you can go ahead though. Yeah. Okay. I couldn't remember how early on that was, but that was certainly in the back of my mind that might have been 2012. Yes. Okay.
So obviously, probably besides Leicester winning the Premier League, that's got to be one of the greatest Premier League moments in recent history, right? You would agree?
Oh, certainly.
If you can remember Martin Tyler's commentating just a little bit more, who was the player that passed the ball to Aguero? Who got the assist?
Oh, I'm trying to think of who was on that squad. Was it
This
Yaya
guy
Toure?
wasn't Yaya Toure. This is
Mm.
another guy. He's bounced around, but he was with City for a while as kind of like a youngster that was getting a lot of playing time.
Is he still prominent today?
No, but he still
Okay.
plays and he is playing very well.
Oh man, it's so hard to even think of the guys on that team because, like, God, 2012 Man City. I can't even think of anybody except like Samir Nasri. I don't even know if he was still on that team or he was on that team yet. But
I think he was. We're looking for a
uh,
striker.
okay, was it Edin Dzeko?
Wasn't Dzeko? You're close though.
Stevan
You're
Jovetic.
no. Think of
Fuck.
a young guy at the time.
Dude, I can't get it.
Mario Balotelli.
Damn. Fuck,
I
I
knew, I knew
forgot.
you would. I knew you would hate yourself for not getting that.
Yeah, I forgot he was on Man City then.
Anyway, right? He was the one who kind of like he had like he was getting drugged down and he kind of just like flicked it with his left foot. It was such a good play by Mario Balotelli to set up Aguero. So the interesting stat that comes out of that though is Mario Balotelli spent around 6 seasons in the Premier League, but 4 seasons of actually getting appearances. That was Mario Balotelli's only Premier League assist in his like career in the Premier League.
That's crazy.
Right? Yeah, so that's my do you remember that Mario Balotelli was the one that assisted Aguero? His only Premier League assist.
That is wild. Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah. All right, let's hear yours, man.
All right. Well, mine is simply just a person, just a chaotic human being, Sebastian Janikowski.
Oh yeah. Love that.
And there's no specific thing, no one season, just the fact that he existed and is still a real human being just stumps me. Okay. He had 2 Lou Awards while at Florida State. That's the best kicker in college football. All right, back to back. He scored 324 points in just 3 years in college. That's third all time in FSU history. But a little bit of off the field problems for Janikowski. August 1998, he got into a fight outside of a Tallahassee bar and was charged with failure to leave the premises. Pled no contest to the misdemeanor. Okay. That same year, the night after a season ending win over Florida, Janikowski got into a fight at a local bar and was charged with battery. Okay.
All right.
Although Janikowski was a fantastic kicker, he was questioned a little bit by scouts in the NFL, obviously because of the off-field behavior, and most people didn't even want to draft him. But the Raiders took probably the biggest gamble in NFL history, and they selected Sebastian Janikowski 21st overall in that draft. A kicker. 21st overall. Or sorry, 17th. I apologize. He was round 1, pick 17 as a kicker.
Yeah.
That is fucking insane.
Yeah, this draft class, I'm looking at it now. The Raiders could have taken Sean Alexander. Let me see who else was in this draft class that got kind of looked over. There were a lot of guys that were taken before him that were pretty crazy. But yeah, a lot of people also don't know that Sebastian Janikowski played for the Polish youth soccer team.
Yeah, a fantastic soccer player.
Yeah, he actually is from Poland. He was also left-footed, which was kind of weird too.
Yeah, a fantastic player. But on top of him getting picked 21st overall, pre-draft in January of 2000, he was partying with a group of friends when his high school friend was arrested at a nightclub. Janikowski, who later said that he was thinking he could save everyone paperwork and the trouble, approached the arresting officer, asked him how much it would take to let his friend go.
Oh my God.
He got arrested for attempting to bribe an officer, charged to carry a $5,000 fine, up to 5 years in prison, and possible deportation because he is still, an immigrant technically. So Janikowski claimed that he thought he could pay a fine to have his friend released. That's obviously bullshit. But the officer interpreted the action as he attempted bribe. Obviously, he was trying to fucking bribe him. But
Yeah.
that's just such a crazy story. And then the fact that he got selected in the first round, let alone the 17th pick, is even crazier. And the gamble paid off for the most part. 16 seasons, I believe, with the Raiders. Absolutely insane. And he holds the record for the longest field goal in overtime, being 57 yards. The most field goals in one quarter, he's tied at 4. The most field goals of 50 plus yards in his career at 58. Most field goals attempted of 60 plus in his career at 8. The most field goals of 50 plus yards in one game, he's tied with Justin Tucker for 3. Most extra points in a Pro Bowl with 8. The longest field goal attempt at 76 yards. And he was tied for the longest field goal made in history at 63 before that was broken by Matt Prater and later Justin Tucker. This guy is just such a fucking beast.
I remember when I was a kid, I loved this guy because I'm actually Polish. He's Polish. He was he was a cool kicker. Of course, his legal trouble is hilarious and pretty shitty, but hilarious nonetheless. I also wanted to bring up Grayson at Seabreeze High School in Daytona Beach, Florida, which is where he went. He kicked an 82-yard field goal during practice.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And the guy was just a beast.
Oh, I thought I read that he was a walk-on at Florida State. I was wrong.
No.
Not walk-on. But yeah, what a guy, dude. What a guy.
Just an absolute fucking beast. And such a Florida State legend. It's kind of weird. Florida State is underrated as a kicker school.
Who was the guy that ended up going to Tampa that didn't
Roberto
work out?
Aguayo.
Yes, Aguayo. Couldn't think of his name.
So him, Graham Gano, Dustin Hopkins.
Graham Gano.
Yeah, a couple other guys too. The guy that we've got right now is pretty good. I'm blanking on his name right now, but Ricky Aguayo was pretty good in college. Nothing really big in the NFL, but yeah, Florida State's a kicking school.
Yeah, for sure. Must be. Didn't really think of it to be one, but that's interesting.
All right, Luke. Anything else you've got for the people?
I think we can sayonara, my friend.
All right. Well, we will see y'all next week. We're just getting closer and closer to the draft, so keep looking out for everything coming your way.
Oh, one thing.
Go ahead.
Nathan, shout out Nathan. Your episode on Wednesday was absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. What a super sub for Brock, man.
Yeah, fantastic pickup with Brock being busy.
Yep, that's all I wanted to say. Shout out Nathan.
All right, that's going to do it for us. See y'all later. Peace.
Peace.